I'm going to endeavor tonight to not set another record for the longest meeting.
Okay, well, I'll go with that one. Maybe
Did you hear that,
chairperson
Betsy?
level,
What's that?
The longest meeting we ever had for work session?
You're not just I can remember.
We had one that started at 6 p.m. ended at 1 o'clock the next morning.
I was not there for that one.
That's insane.
I was not there for that
We're
one.
not going to repeat that tonight.
Yeah, please no.
Walking out, she says.
We're not going to repeat that.
Shouldn't be too long.
I'd be taking a nap. Get the notes for the
Right.
Chief planner and that's the real thing. Yeah, super technically, I don't even know. But that requires like 5 years of experience.
Good evening. Welcome to Crespo City Council meetings, July 25, 2022. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome. My name is Dave Stram. I'm the mayor, and I'm wearing a mask tonight because I've just come off of having COVID. And if you've already had that experience, you know what it's about. If you haven't, I hope you know. My son got married 2 weeks ago on Thursday. I officiated, and all day long my nose hurt, and I thought I was having an allergy attack. The next day I tested positive. Of course, I'd already infected half the wedding party by then, so it's quite an experience, and that's why I'm going to wear a mask tonight for myself and also for you. So thank you again for coming. Tonight we actually have 3 meetings scheduled. Not 1, but 3. We will begin with a special meeting of the council, actually a special meeting of the Crespo Urban Renewal Agency, which is comprised of the City Council. We will then adjourn that meeting and move into the second special City Council meeting, which addresses the Foster Farm situation. Then we will adjourn that meeting and then move into the regularly scheduled council work session. So you're welcome to stay for all 3 if you'd like. But after we have the second meeting, we will adjourn. We will reconfigure because we have our work session with tables here, so we work in a round table situation, and then we'll begin again. All right, so we begin tonight with the Crespo Urban Renewal Agency meeting. And the first item on the agenda is the consent calendar. So councilors, all items listed are considered routine and will be enacted by a single motion in the form listed. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a councilor requests that an item be removed and considered separately. Council members, is there anything that needs to be removed from the agenda for discussion, for correction or amendment? All right, then I'm entertaining a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented. Councilor Prachu.
I move to accept the consent calendar as presented.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Councilor Inman. Any further discussion? All right, councilors, will proceed to vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. We move on to item number 2, which is to accept a $225,000 10-year loan at 1.44% interest from the City of Crespo General Fund and to authorize City Manager to enter into a contract and sign all documents related to the purchase of the right-of-way at 345 East Oregon Avenue. I believe this item is Mr. Piper.
Thank you, Chair Stram and members of the agency. The item we have before you is simply an interfund loan from the general fund to the urban renewal fund to purchase right away. We've been under negotiation for over a year on this, and we're at the end phase, and now it's time to borrow the money and execute the right away purchase.
What is this item?
I want to make sure you're finished with your presentation, Jim.
Sure. That's it, unless there's questions from the agency board.
Okay, Counselor, any questions? All right, Counselor Osborne.
Where exactly is that right away?
The right-of-way is at 345 East Oregon Avenue. It's between TJ's and the former Super 8 Hotel.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Counselor Osborne, be sure and turn your microphone down and make sure it's on. So,
Yes, sir.
okay,
I will.
all right.
I forget. I
Okay.
will.
Any further questions from the council? Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, council members, or I should say, members of the Urban Renewal Agency. Any further discussion of this item or questions for our staff? All right, then I'm entertaining a motion. Councilor Castillo.
Excuse me, I move to accept a $225,000 10-year loan at 1.44% interest from the City of Crestwell General Fund and authorize the city manager to enter into contract and sign all documents related to the purchase of the right-of-way at 345 East Oregon Avenue.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Councilor Shuck. Councilor Shuck seconds the motion. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion by the Urban Renewal Agency? Right, we will proceed to vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. All right, and I believe that concludes the Urban Renewal Agency meeting. So that meeting is adjourned. We will now begin the Crestwell City Council meeting to consider a possible letter to the DEQ regarding the startup of the Foster Farms chicken plant located on Harvey Road. I'm going to just lower my mask for a minute or two to make some opening comments. Thank you all for coming. My guess is you're here for this meeting and not for the last one or the next one. Look at that. We have, I think, unanimity. So, a little bit of background. On July 12th, you might have seen this headline in the Register Guard. What I noticed first on the top was, Crestwell rolls out welcome mat for Finland. That was exciting news, and it has been exciting news if you've lived around here and you've seen the excitement of the Finland team here. But then I noticed in the far right column, Foster Farms applies for permit to reopen in Crestwell. And I read that article and thought, oh boy. So that's a piece of information my guess that most of you have already had. Then I received an email from former Mayor Richard Zennervall, who's here tonight, expressing concerns and hoping the council would make a response. Then I consulted with Council President Kevin Prachu and decided last week to call a special meeting of the council. And as you can see in the agenda, it says it is to regarding a possible letter to the DEQ, Department of Environmental Quality, regarding the startup of the Foster Farms chicken plant located on Harvey Road. Now, here's the most recent information I have, because I began getting information last week, have continued today, and so this is the most recent information, and I want to share this with you. Dated 6/29/2022, and I'm sorry the council doesn't have all this, because I didn't have time to get it all to you. A lot of this information I just got today. Dated June 29, 2022, a public notice from the DEQ. And here's what it reads. DEQ requests comments on proposed Foster Poultry Farms Incorporated water quality permit renewal for poultry processing. The Oregon Department of Environmental Quality invites the public to provide written comment on the conditions of the Foster Poultry Farms Incorporated proposed water quality permit, known officially as a National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit. Summary. Subject to public review and comment, DEQ intends to renew the Foster Farms permit, which allows Foster Farms to discharge wastewater to an unnamed tributary of Camaswale Creek. This facility is a chicken processing facility. It is not a confined animal feeding operation that raises chickens. The facility has not discharged since ceasing operations in 2006. The proposed permit requires updated data, engineering reports, and public notice prior to any future discharge being allowed by DEQ. The next section talks about where to get information. It gave the name of the DEQ contact, Trin Hansen, and contact information. And it said that comments were due by 5 p.m. Thursday, August 4. This was June 29. This is another public notice issued by the DEQ July 22nd, 2022. July 22nd, which would have been Friday. Public hearing about Foster Poultry Farms Incorporated Creswell proposed water quality permit renewal, August 29, 2022 in Zoom virtual meeting. The Oregon Department of Environmental Quality invites the public to submit oral and written comment on the conditions of Foster Poultry Farm Incorporated proposed water quality permit renewal for a facility in Creswell, known officially as National Pollution Discharge Elimination System permit. Summary. Foster Farms has informed DEQ that they do not have plans to reopen the facility at this time. However, subject to public review and comment, DEQ intends to renew the Foster Poultry Farms permit, which allows Foster Farms to discharge wastewater to an unnamed tributary of Camaswale Creek. This facility is a chicken processing facility. It is not a confined animal feeding operation that raises chickens. The facility has not discharged since ceasing operations in 2006. The proposed permit requires updated data, engineering reports, and public notice prior to any future discharge being allowed by DEQ. How do I participate? Attend the public hearing to learn about the permit application, ask any questions you might have, and provide oral or written comments on the proposed hearing. Hearing details. When? 4 p.m., Monday, August 29, 2022, where? Zoom virtual meeting. And then there's information here on how you log on and get into the Zoom meeting. And the contact person again is Trin Hansen, T-R-I-N-H, and then there's information here. So this was as of Friday. So today I had conversations with Commissioner Heather Buck, our local commissioner. We talked back and forth on the farm, on the phone, on the farm. And she sent me an email at 1:05 this afternoon. And I had sent her some information I'd got. And she said, "Thank you, Mayor. I gave Ms. Hansen a call earlier today and confirmed they did not include the necessary information to reopen the plant, only to renew the existing license. Sounds like to reopen it would take an additional licensing process with much more information provided. I have a call into our staff to see what the county process would be if in the future they wanted to reopen it." Then Commissioner Buck and I talked later in the afternoon. She said she'd gotten a response from her staff, and the response basically was there's a lot of loopholes you have to go through in the county. to reopen an existing plant or to build and start a new one. And that nothing has begun along that process at this point. County has no information at this point. So I sent an email to Trent Hansen saying I'm writing to confirm that the DEQ will be holding a public hearing via Zoom on August 29 at 4 p.m. to hear comments on the Foster Poultry Farms Incorporated Creswell proposed water quality permit renewal. Is this correct? She responded at 1:57 p.m. Hi Dave, yes, that is correct. The hearing details can be found on the public notice post on the DEQ website. Thanks, Trin. So that's the most recent information I have. And what I've asked Manager Amber to do is to get all the information here about public hearing, how you log on, and make that available through our city website, through other news sources. You can also go online. If you were to Google Foster Farms DEQ permit Creswell, you'll find all the information. You'll be able to get to it. So this information, in fact, the application of Foster Farms, the renewal application, is public. It's online, 44 or 45 pages long. It's very detailed. I took a quick skim and said, ooh. So that's what I know. Now, when I called the meeting on last week, based on what I had read in the Register Guard, I thought, well, they're going to reopen the plant, and we need to hear from our community about reopening the plant. So I had Roberta notice the meeting tonight specifically with that agenda in mind. So one of the challenges of doing city work is we have to notice every meeting and let the public know what we're going to meet about. And once we tell you what we're going to meet about, we have to meet about that. We can't meet about everything else. So we are going to have a public forum right now, and our public forum is 30 minutes long. Individual speakers can speak up to 3 minutes at a time on this topic, and the topic is concerns about the startup of Foster Farms chicken plant. So our goal tonight is to hear from you. And if you want to speak, you need to have turned in a request to Roberta. Papers are on the back. If you need to take a minute and go grab them, please do. Otherwise, Roberta will give me the ones that have been turned in. And I invite you to the podium here. And you have 3 minutes to share your concerns with us. Okay? So, Roberta. Again, if you wanted to speak and you hadn't filled out a form, please take a minute and grab one just outside the door, complete it, and then come around and bring it up to Roberta. Our first speaker is Colleen Stewart.
Hello, thank you for providing this public forum to get input from the citizens of Creswell. My name is Colleen Stewart. My husband, Tom Partridge, and I have lived in Creswell for the past 13 years. Ever since we read the article in the Register Guard a couple of weeks ago, we've become more and more upset about the future of the city of Creswell if Foster Farms is allowed to reopen and expand the chicken slaughterhouse on Harvey Road. Our specific concerns include potential contamination of waterways and wells, endangering fish habitat, causing air pollution and putrid smelling air, negatively impacting local farms, reducing property values, exposing our town's children to air pollution with schools near the site, clogging up traffic on Harvey Road with big trucks, impacting road maintenance and air pollution, bringing jobs that most of us would never want to do, as Foster Farms has a poor record regarding its treatment of employees and animals. I have a few questions for you. I know you're not going to answer those right now. Just wondering if you're going to discuss this topic tonight. It didn't look like it was on the agenda for the later meeting. Will you be publicizing the City Council's response to this potential reopening and expansion? Will you be discussing the concerns of local citizens with county and state officials? And it sounds like you've started doing that. How much influence does our city have on the final decision, since it sounds like the site is not under the city's jurisdiction? My husband and I like the slogan, "Act like you live here." That's why we're here. We care about our community, the air we breathe, and the waterways and wells that feed us and sustain life for other species. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen. Thank you, Colleen. Our next speaker is Mindy Williams.
Thank you for this opportunity, Mr. Mayor. Okay, I'm just a normal citizen concerned. I moved here in 2006, shortly after the plant closed. I've actually been to their only location in Kelso, Washington that's still open in the Northwest, and it is not something that you want in this town. Just the feathers plastered on the sidewalks and the smell is unbearable. Not to mention the trucks packed full of chickens driving through the small town and leaving litter, like biological waste, on the streets, including feet and severed heads. It's disturbing, and I'm raising my son here, and I wouldn't want him to witness that. And a slaughterhouse like this would use a huge amount of water, and I read actually recently that was something that Cresswell was proud of, was that they got a lot of funds from the water consumption of a facility of that magnitude. And I actually did some calculations, and when they were producing about an average of 40,000 birds per day, they were killing 40,000 birds per day at 5 gallons of water per bird killed. That's about 200,000 gallons of water used per day. And that adds up to about 73 million gallons of water per year, opposed to 36,000 gallons per year that an average person uses. In these times of drought, that's something that we should worry about. And what the other lady said, Colleen, I think was her name, about pollution. That's another big worry of ours. There's a lot of pollutants, not just blood and feces that go into the waterways, even if it's treated. Huge amounts of nitrogen and phosphorus will end up in our waterways, and eventually they encourage algae blooms, which will suffocate aquatic life and turn the waterways into bacteria-laden public health hazards that I don't think we want to live amongst. So, sorry, I have severe anxiety. Okay.
Doing great, thank you for being here.
The air pollution is not regulated, so there's no way to control or punish them for ruining our neighborhoods. Like, you can't just walk out in your yard without experiencing really distasteful air. What else? Oh, so their intention is not to open anytime soon, but it's important to note that there are 3 large CAFOs underway right now that have been started, already being built in less than an hour from here. And it will, in the next couple of years, be more convenient for them to reopen this slaughterhouse than shipping them all the way to Washington. So it's inevitable, and I think that it would be best if we avoid permitting them to pollute our town. And
Thank you, Mindy. That was your 3
the
minutes.
end.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Therese Brubaker.
Hi there, I'm Therese Brubaker. I live at 489 North 6th Street here in Cresswell. To triangulate you, I've lived here for 24 years. I live between the elementary school and the high school on the east side of the field. The smell is atrocious, and it gets worse depending on which way the wind blows, but don't think anyone's immune from this. It will ruin the quality of our lives, basically. The second thing I'd like to bring up is Some years ago, recently, we spent quite a bit of money and time and effort on Safe School Crossing on Fifth Street. So Taft Hardy and Fifth Street, I said the wrong street. Fifth Street is a safe school crossing with improvements that were made for the students in the busing. That will certainly be complicated with large trucks coming through, and certainly the pedestrian load will be impacted with that as well. So I think that they're applying for a permit. If they think they're not opening again, that's a joke. That's the first step. So I think we need to fight it head on, and I think we need to protect our town, protect our students, protect our schools, and all of our properties. Thank you.
Thank you, Therese. Okay. That closes the public forum. So now, council, possible letter to DEQ regarding the startup of the Foster Farms chicken plant. So, okay, we have one more speaker.
Sorry. I
I
also have some anxiety. My name
Just
is.
a minute, if you can, I need to get the form. Thank
Oh,
you.
did I do the wrong form? Sorry.
Okay. So, our speaker is Doris Epperly. Doris?
Hi, my name's Doris Epperly. I live off of First Street. I did work at this Foster Farms very long ago when I was very young. They weren't conducive to people skills or being nice to their employees. They're very dirty inside as well as what she said on the outside. They, like you said, they stink very badly. They're not good. My questions would be, as you said, the Camas Whale, what are they coming to discharge? And why is it being discharged in the Camas Whale? And you know, I would want to know what that entails, and why do they need to discharge anything if it's been closed for so long? That would concern me. That's, I think, all I really had to say. But I would worry about them. And also, I did read in one of the articles that these permits that they keep, because they did get a permit in 2015 also, and these permits, as they keep getting permits, it also helps them keep the property there so that they could eventually, as she said, they could eventually reopen. That helps them keep the property there so they could eventually reopen it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so council. Thank you. Here's kind of how I've shaped our discussion of this into three questions. Does the council wish to write a letter to the DEQ expressing concerns? If so, number two, what would the content be? What would be the specific concerns expressed? Keep in mind that what DEQ is acting on is a renewal of a discharge permit. Not reopening of a plant, but a permit to discharge into the unnamed tributary of Camas Whale Creek, and it's renewing their permit. So that's the specific thing the DEQ is acting on. So if we wish to write a letter, what would we want the content to be? And number three, if we wish to write a letter, then would you authorize Manager Amber and I to draft the letter and bring it back at the August 8th council meeting? Now we have a little bit longer time framework because the public hearing is set for August 29. However, the next time that we're going to meet that we can actually make a decision is August 8th. And we won't have another meeting prior to August 29 to make that decision. So if you want Manager Amberg and I to draft a letter together, we would do that. We would have it in the packet prior to the August 8th meeting. And then when we meet August 8th, we could review it, revise it, And then the council would need to take a vote to authorize us to send it. So, first question, and we need to discuss this. Council, do you want to write a letter to the DEQ about the permit? Councilor Osborne.
I think we should write a letter. And a lot of the information could be drawn from the comments of the public, because I think DEQ is most likely to be interested in the discharge of the water and whatever pollutants would be on the land. Does that seem correct?
Well, I don't know how DEQ will respond.
Right. So, yeah, I think we should. It's my opinion that we should.
Okay? Councilor Schutz.
If we write a letter, will it be read at the public hearing? Don't we need to attend the public hearing? Or do they take in correspondence at the hearing? Manager Berg says yes.
From what I've read, they are receiving both written and oral comments.
Okay. Okay, I
So-
thought the deadline for written was August 4th.
It changed
Okay.
because of what I read tonight, that it's been bumped back to the 29th.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm sure that whatever we send will be entered as a public record. Whether it will be read at the meeting, I don't know. But it would be a public record. That would be with the DEQ. Others? Councilor Prachu.
One of these things where you see something like this and you read the line, there are no immediate plans, and that sounds great, you know, and you can think, well, they've been closed for so long now, and any kind of reopening would probably require quite a bit of modernization, probably have to rebuild the site. But that being said, I always have concerns that no immediate plans can easily become plans, you know, in not that much time. So the idea that the council would make some kind of statement regarding this as kind of a preemptive strike, if you will, I think is a good idea, and I would support a letter.
Okay. All right, other councilors? Councilor Castillo?
Yes, I believe that I would totally be in support of writing a letter from the council. And this letter is, just to clarify, this letter is not to request a hearing. This would be for the 29th hearing, correct? Okay, because our literature says it was to request, okay. So yes, anyway, so I would be in total support, and my opinion totally aligns with everything that I've heard here tonight. So I'd be totally in support in that direction. And also, the concerns, the concern I have, and I would like for it to be included, and I don't know if this is accurate or not, but in regards to the memo that we received last month from our Public Works Director in regards to our own water permit issues, do those mesh together with this, or is that a totally separate issue?
First of all, it's a wastewater, it's not water. This is in response to water that is wastewater coming from the plant. And it would not mesh with our discharge permit for the city.
Okay, so that would not have any effect on that situation?
I can't say it won't have any effect at all whatsoever, but my guess would be that they're two separate items before the DEQ right now. One is a municipal concern and one is a factory.
Okay, well, I guess my thought was that if there is an inkling that it could impact that situation, that it should be included in the correspondence.
Understood.
Thank you.
Councilor Clark.
I'm in concurrence that I would be very supportive of a letter being written to the DEQ on behalf of the city council. And I think everything that we've heard tonight, all the correspondence that we've received, I think it shows, I mean, there's some energy within our community around wanting to share their voice and their perspective, and I think that we have a responsibility as city council to reflect what our citizens are sharing with us and to represent that. And so I am absolutely in support of us writing a letter to the DEQ, not only to share any concerns that we have, but also to on behalf of the citizens of Crestwell.
Okay. Misty, Councilor Inman.
Yes, so I equally agree with all counselors, and as well as Councilor Castillo for bringing up the wastewater. I was concerned about that based on our last meeting, and I would agree for a letter to be sent to the DEQ.
Okay. So I think that with this item, we can move forward with consensus if we agree that a letter should be written. So I'm going to ask if there's consensus that the council write a letter to the DEQ. All right, there's consensus. So then the next question, let's nail down the content of this letter. What I've heard is Councilor Castillo raised the question of the discharge is into the same tributary, if I'm correct, that the city discharges with during the same period of time. That during the months of, Cliff's here, first part of October through end of April?
Correct.
November 1st.
Till the 1st of May.
To the 1st of May, the city also discharges into the unnamed tributary, Camuswale, which the permit would allow Foster Farms to do the same. So I think that would be a concern expressed. I mean, I don't know. You asked the question how that might impact what we're doing, and I think that's something that Michelle and Cliff and I can talk about over the next couple of weeks as we're trying to draft a letter. So that would be one item. And Roberta and Michelle, you're taking notes on all this?
Yes.
Yay, okay. What other concerns would you want in the content of this letter? Councilor Castillo?
Quality of life in general. I think it would lower, our quality of life. I think that it would lower our quality of life here in Crestwell as far as the air quality and all the things that we heard here tonight.
Okay, so the discharge into the creek would lower it?
Yes, and the smell.
But the smell has to do with the operating of the plant and the lagoons. Not necessarily, and here's my opinion, I've been here since '82. When I smelled the chicken plant, it was in the summer when it was warm and the wind was blowing in the wrong direction. It wasn't in the middle of the winter when they were discharging into the tributary. And it was because of the processing and the lagoons, and in the middle of the summer, So again, I want to be pinpointedly clear as what's our concern. You know, smell is an issue with them reopening the plant, but is smell an issue with them renewing a permit to discharge? See the difference?
I would say yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I was here, I was very fortunate to only been here when I moved in, they were on their way out. It was about 3 years until they left. And I lived pretty close, and as well as others. And I could smell it all the time, no matter which way the wind was blowing. So,
In the winter time as well.
not as bad, but it was there.
Okay, so odor and smell in terms of how that affects the quality of life of our citizens.
Sure.
Okay. Councillor Inman, and then Councillor Osborne.
Well, regarding the discharge part, I would be concerned on our waterways and how it's getting discharged. So the aquatic life and what that could do. So when it comes to discharging, I would be concerned about that as well.
Okay,
And the overall environment of aquatic as well as plant life.
all right,
That
thank you.
that
Councillor
actually is
Osborne?
my greatest concern, is I don't know if they're treating the water before they discharge it, and it could cause a lot of problems. Not just in that creek area they're going into, but they go into other waterways as well, so that could affect what's going on, I don't know, is it the Willamette River it goes into eventually?
I believe. Cliff, can you answer that? Yes.
Yeah, okay, so it's going to affect not just Creswell, but much of the state of Oregon. So that has to be a concern as well. And I don't trust them to treat the water so that it's safe.
Okay. Councillor Clark?
Yeah, so I think in addition to what was also has been shared by my colleagues and fellow counselors, I think one of the things that we learned when we were engaging in our 5-year strategic planning is that quality of water and cleanliness of water was a value that was very highly regarded and was a high issue for our residents of Creswell. And so if we are discharging water for discharging into the tributaries, into the water, I worry about quality of water. And how are we supporting the citizens of Creswell in terms of what it is that they have shared with us that they highly value. I also worry down the line about, as we think about the combination of the concerns about water quality, as we think about the smell, as we think about just other impacts that we have within our city, as I worry about our property values as well. And I have like specific metrics as to what that's going to mean, but I worry about the property values.
Okay, so again, I'm gonna ask to try to get really pinpoint. How will discharging into the unnamed tributary 6 months of the year affect property values in Creswell? Because when we write a letter, we need to make it present as strong a case as we can for why we're hoping they're going to listen to us. So that's why I'm asking some of these questions.
I think that's a great question, and I can only project into the future. Manager Amberg, did you have your hand up? Did you have your hand up?
Go ahead.
Okay, I was going to say I can only project into the future as to as I think about how do we create a community where individuals want to move to, where they want to live, where they want to build their family, where they want to stay, and for me, I mean, again, I think the discharge and the renewal of the permit is one step in that process. And it's a longer process, but I think it's a first step in that process of, you know, how do we maintain clean waterways? How do we help clean waterways? If I were to sell my house or buy a house, what's property that is sought out? Is it something that smells, right? Is it property that smells, or is it property that has good, clean water, right? That I feel good about being in, and again, just raising my family in here. So I think it's long-term as I think about property values, and I wish I had here's exactly what it's gonna mean. But again, I think it's just one step in the process, and so I just wanted to bring up that point.
Okay. So I have a question for Cliff and Michelle. Manager Amber?
I think it's worth thinking about the way that it's treated, the actual wastewater treatment, the way that it's treated prior to being discharged into the stream. We also use the same discharge, so it's kind of difficult for us to argue that we're worried about the water quality when we're discharging into it ourselves. But the lagoon system that they have, I think, is worthy of some note, and I think that does impact property values, and whether or not they can actually discharge to the levels that are required. That's one of the things we're looking at, We're looking at improving and upgrading our wastewater treatment plant because of the discharge requirements that are in that creek. So I think that their lagoon system really is a part of the equation.
Okay. I'm going to ask the members of the public refrain from visiting with one another while we're having our meeting. You can please do that. Thank you. Okay. Who's next? Oh, I wanted to ask a question. Coming back to Councilor Clark. Water quality. So Cliff and Michelle, discharging into the unnamed tributary, will that affect the water quality in Creswell that we receive in our homes and businesses?
Not directly. It's the discharge is downstream of our intakes at the water plant, so it will not directly influence the city of Creswell's water, but it possibly could downstream users.
So then I think that's a good thing that could be noted in the letter, that the impact it could have on other communities. Okay? Thank you, Cliff. Councilor Osborne.
Another concern is the lagoon itself. If they're discharging into a lagoon, can that go into our groundwater and affect our groundwater?
Cliff?
I know in the past that they have had some issues with the leaky lagoon, so I think that's a valid point. Most of them are lined and they're allowed a certain percentage of leakage, which is very small, through DEQ rules. But I know in the past they've had an issue with one that leaked, so that I think that is a valid point, that leaking lagoon could be an issue.
And that can impact maybe not particularly residents in Creswell because our water supply is clear on that side of town, but it can certainly impact our nearby county residents who have wells in that vicinity. I think that can be something that can be noted. Okay. Other, Councilor Castillo.
Yes, Mayor, just one more comment. We were speaking of when we speak of wildlife and so forth in the water. I think it was 2012, ODF started introducing Chinook salmon into the Coast Fork, trying to create a run. Now, that would definitely impact to be specific, we have ODF has been working very hard to recreate a run there. So that could be included as well.
Okay. All right, thank you. Councilor Prachu.
So we've got some testimony from one of our participants this evening that was talking about nitrogen and phosphorus as being part of the discharge. Is that right? So it sounds to me like there's some concerns there that I would like some more facts on. I think would be helpful to include maybe some of that in.
All right.
Comment again about that now.
Well, that's something that we can look into.
I researched that. I did some simple research.
Okay.
I highly recommend it.
All right, thank you.
Okay. All right, well, so Roberta, do you happen to have all those things? You could read them back to us?
I missed the first one, but it's all up right there on the recorder.
Okay, it's on the recording. Why don't you read what you did capture?
Let's see. I have the quality of life.
Is your microphone on?
Yes.
Okay.
No. Quality of life, odor and smell, waterways, aquatic life, overall environment, quality of water, property values, how do we create a community where families want to live and stay, how do we maintain clean waterways. We talked about the lagoon system and how that's a worthy note and how it could impact property values. It could affect those downstream from our intake, the leaky lagoon, wildlife, and the nitrogen and phosphorus.
Okay, very good. All right, council, anything else you want to add? So, last question, do you want to authorize Manager Amber and myself, getting Cliff to help us too, and any other resources we need, to draft a letter to the DEQ that would come back to the council in 2 weeks at the August 8th council meeting for your review and then adoption, and then it would be sent. Councilor Shutt? Okay. All right, I'm seeing consensus on that. So that is the action we will take. How does that sound? Okay. So with that, we are adjourned from this meeting. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a little break. We're going to share. And here's for you.
Good job. Right before that. I didn't think that was something to worry about.
What I wonder about is if we say they're valid, if they just go back to
Yeah.
I know you have all kinds of rules.
Right.
And I like that.
Hello.
Sure, it's great to see you again.
Nice to meet you.
First get to meet you at the
Yeah, well, it's a different context than I
That's
see.
okay.
We're having a good time. She's learning. She's getting it too.
Oh my gosh, she's getting better now.
Yes. Everywhere I go in town, people have stopped me. And yeah, it's awesome. So it's like, no, we got it. Okay. I didn't live here, but I visited here as a family. And I live behind the coal park. So I just wanted to say, I see it. Yeah, I am really close.
Kelly, okay. Yeah, we always do our piano recital when the.
Sure, yeah, our whole development.
I'll have her do it
Here, yeah.
That would be fun.
Good.
And I'm hearing for consistency of fluid, because we're probably going to learn that you go, oh, no, we didn't do it right. It's perfection every time.
I drill into it.
Sorry, I guess I'm in the hallway and Matt Hanson was going.
Which way? It needs to flip. It's got a handle there in the inside.
Oh, I see. That was good on that one, Cliff.
This.
I think that goes outside actually.
Yeah.
These two go outside like this.
Not like that.
This is how they go at 3 o'clock.
I don't think they can ever reopen.
How's it going?
They own the land and the property. What I'm reading, the new market in China, chicken, federal government approved. Lizard Valley chicken in China. And also, the federal government has limited.
Okay, you got it.
All the new farms coming up in Idaho, the market.
Sitting there at the end.
Production side, making all
What you want to.
No, I just didn't want to, if you were putting your stuff here, I didn't want to.
Oh, yeah.
Over you to get to.
I don't have a favorite spot or anything.
That is, the state work facility. Now, if that's gonna happen, Lane County is gonna have a major voice in it. going to be a lot more opportunities for the city to say.
How are you?
And if that happens.
I got the stock tank donation for National Out. And Norman Jim's gonna do the early shift with Michelle.
Awesome.
Before you get so we're covered. And then the runway.
They were the major water.
The head honcho update.
Things will happen, and we're gonna have a lot of opportunities.
Not it. I said not it. Good to see us. When I hear the word lagoon.
Yeah.
So it actually starts at 5:30.
So, that's at 5.
Yeah, and usually I try to get there at 5, but my work schedule, I just can't. Anytime, 25, 30. But I don't live far, so I just go all kinds of far.
Half a mile from my house.
I'm like a block or two. I'm not very
I
fast.
live on Blue Jay Loop, off of First.
Okay, yeah. I live over by the school, elementary school.
Make sure they show up.
And last year, they set the table under a tree, so you get that same setup. It was nice.
Oh, yeah.
It was hot.
Oh, yeah.
We had the shade and a little breeze. It was nice.
Yeah. So I'll get there at 4:30 and stand there. You can't touch this spot.
Well, thank you, I appreciate it.
Trying to get my roommates to show up for it.
Are those speckles on your glass or in your glass?
So it's like a temperature glass. It changes color depending on the temperature.
Okay, that's cool.
So, as this gets warmer, you'll notice that the speckles go.
Oh,
But yeah, so I bought it at Costco.
oh, wow.
Yeah, they're actually, I bought them for like candy. Because I was like, it's got a lid, it's got a straw, no bubbles.
Yeah. Nope.
Perfect.
It reminds me of a shirt I had in the 80s. That's kind of dating myself, but
I described
yeah.
it as hypercolor. Yeah. Talk about it in the dresses.
Right?
You were a teenager?
Oh, well, I had two different shirts it reminds me of. One was older than a teenager, but one was, I think I was maybe late elementary, junior high. So I still wish I had that shirt.
So I have another glass. So I'm a Beaver at heart. And that's
Okay,
where
yeah.
I went there, I graduated from there. So
No,
like,
no judgment.
right? I work at U of O now, and so like all things orange are not as celebrated
No.
as they are in Corvallis.
Yeah.
But I have an orange glass that turns red when it's cold, so I can have my orange.
Yeah.
But, not make a deal of it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, what's funny is my husband's alma mater is orange and burgundy, but it's not Beavers. But a lot of people think when they see it that it is. Yeah. And mine is green and gold, but it's not the
Right.
Ducks. So it's funny that we have the twins.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
My grandson claims to be a platypus fan.
Oh.
My daughter went to OSU and my daughter-in-law went to U of O.
Robert? Robert Killen. And I'm David.
They're definitely a house divided. So I'm just kind of, we bought the baby both clothes.
Yeah,
Well,
get both sides of
Yeah.
it. Yeah, there you go.
Not being playing favorites.
But, exactly, yeah, it's, I talked with that. I'm actually.
I mean, I think that they,
Yeah.
they're all hard, but they have a very different, specialty area.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, my daughter's, her degree is animal science. Not offered at U of L.
Right, yeah, I mean, you wanna go to OSU, whatever, you wanna do journalism.
I don't, I just have that, but family's drinking water, so. Thank you, Roberta. Well, and I've had a lot of people think I have fevers on. I was like, no, I'm actually a Hokies. Virginia Tech Hokies. Yeah, but it's the same colors. Now I started yawning, it's not gonna stop. For a while, he just. Sure.
Oh, I do remember in your basement, you know, I don't know the name.
You're supposed to stay awake from my presentation today?
I'll try. That's what I can say.
I won't be there.
Okay.
We've got more important things.
We do have a lot tonight to cover.
We've got more important things.
You do have a lot on the agenda. And I see the council's ready to go. Okay. All right, councilors. We'll wait for Roberta to come with our recording device. July 25th, 2022. You'll be glad to note we can skip number 1 because I have no mayor's report. We are moving quick. Let's go on to committee reports. Is there a report from Administration and Finance Committee?
No, not really, Mayor. I'd just like to add that, just like to comment that I hope everyone is on track for getting all their our city employee evaluations are around the corner. They're coming up. So I think I've sent the email out to get everything going. And we discussed briefly, so keep up the good work and get our.
And I think Shelley and I are on for September, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Then so is Councilor Proctor, correct? Right. Which is the last
The
day
last-
to attend court. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you for your diligence, too. You put together a great lineup.
That's it.
So, I actually do have a little mayor's thing. It kind of remind me of. Elections, believe it or not, are coming up. And I know 3 of you, your term is expiring, and you have to now make the decision, do I run again for office? There's a window, Roberta, the paperwork and the signatures need to be gathered and turned back into you by August 16 or something like that?
August 16th would be perfect. The drop dead deadline with Lane County is August 29th, but after the 16th, they would have to be turned into the county, and the county has to go through them and make sure that your signatures that you have collected are good signatures.
So
they like a
ideally-
little window of time because they never know how much work they've got besides.
So that if you get it in right at the 29th, do signature sheets and instructions on how to collect them and then turn them back into her. And I'm going to encourage all 3 of you to consider it. And here's one reason. We have a lot of things we've talked about and we're planning in the future. And you all have a lot of experience, a lot of valuable experience. And I promise next year won't be as busy as this year. But the first 6 months of this year, we had a lot of unfinished business, including a public forum that we held, roads work, a strategic plan, training, a lot of stuff. And I knew it was going to be that way. So next year it won't be, I don't project it will be that busy. And I do respect all of your time. That you all have families, you all have other things you've got to do as well. But the wealth that you bring is wonderful. And then there's also this consideration. I've been around long enough to know what happens when there are no candidates applying for a position. Then it becomes a write-in candidate. And believe it or not, we've had people getting written into the council with 3 votes. And that can be a challenging situation. So I just wanted to give that encouragement to the 3 of you. And to all the council members, I do think that part of our job as council is talking with our community members and encouraging them to step forward and serve. And I do that. So I'm going to encourage you over the next 3 weeks. In fact, tonight, one of the members who's sitting here in the back, I talked to her and said, you ought to apply. So I just want to encourage you, as part of our job, as we're kind of cheerleaders, rah-rah. We believe in the city. We believe it's important. If there's people that you think would be good members of the council, please encourage them. Okay? All right. Public Safety Committee.
All right, well, that's me. So, Public Safety Committee meeting met July 19th, where our discussion was National Night Out. And that is going to be August 2nd at the park from 5 to 8. And then the other charge that we have is discussion of emergency operations plan. And that original charge was to have a report in September, and wanted to see if we can push that report back.
When would you like to do that?
November?
Okay, let me write the note down. Charge for emergency operations plan. And move to November work session.
Correct.
Okay. I'll make a note. Michelle, if you can make a note as well, then when we have our bi-monthly meetings, we'll look at that, okay?
Perfect.
But I imagine that can happen.
Okay.
Okay?
Perfect, that would give us some more time.
All right. Okay, Transportation and Public Works Committee.
Committee has no report this evening.
Park and Tree Advisory Board.
I do have a report. We're continuing to work on the tree care plan. Yay! Has everyone received a copy of the map that we have completed? And I'm really proud of the work we've done. It's already on the website. Thank you, Michelle, I believe. You uploaded it to the...
It's already there.
Anyway, it's available, and we're going to have the maps available. Encourage people to walk around our town, get to know our town better. The new equipment for Cobalt, which is paid for by a grant that isn't the city's, will be delivered sometime in August. The bark was already delivered, and the equipment will be delivered in August for the 2nd Street Park. And as you all know, the 4th of July celebration was a success. Everyone worked hard. One thing that was brought up in our meeting is the emerald ash borer is finally in Oregon. It's been across the East Coast for a long time. And when it gets full bore here, 99.9% of all ash trees will die. We don't know why less than 1% doesn't die, so what we'd like to do is just kind of let people know not to plant any ash trees and consider taking down any ash trees that are still already existing to protect them. Once all the ash trees are dead, the ash borer will die out too. But that could destroy a lot. The ash trees protect our streams. They have really important impact on our state. And there's nothing that will kill it. Well, they have a very expensive treatment, which is $100.
A linear foot.
Was it linear? Yeah, linear foot. If we had a special ash tree we wanted to save, that's what it would cost to save it.
Does the city have ash trees particularly?
We probably have a few, but not a whole lot. Most of our trees are different species. We haven't been planting ash trees lately either.
Yeah, it might be a good idea to go ahead and cut down the ash trees that we do have in the public sector and replace them with other trees while we have a chance.
What do you think of that, Michelle, and Cliff's back there? Do you have a prudent?
I don't think most of our street trees are ash trees. I've been taking a look. We have a lot of maple, and we have the pear, and we have some cherry, and we have we've been planting a lot of native trees as part of Arbor Day. So I'm sure that though when the ash trees start dying, we'll be taking them out.
Okay.
It starts at the top and comes down the trunk of the tree.
They will be infected for at least a couple seasons before they're low enough that people will actually notice that they're dying out. So we should start seeing something in a year or two. They've already hit the Portland metro area. They've been found, but that doesn't mean they aren't anyplace else, but they have been identified as being in the Portland metro area.
I don't know, does Ash Grove Loop have ash trees?
Yeah, so ash trees are native. I'm not aware of any trees that the city has invested any time or money or plantings in that are an ash tree. Garden Lake Park has a very few amount of them, and if they start having issues, we would just remove them and replant them. They're normally in swales or wetland areas, so below Ash Grove, all those trees down through there, those are ash trees. And if you went over to Emerald Parkway, like beside Dr. Baines and behind Dairy Queen, those are ash trees. Those are all in private area. The ones behind Ash Grove those are city-owned trees, but there's so many of them that we probably wouldn't look at removing or replacing until they become a hazard, and then we just take them down.
And replace them with something else?
Yeah, at that time we could address it. They're kind of a wildland, wetland area tree, and the trees you see around town that are prominent trees are not gonna be an ash tree.
So is that something we can let Dr. Bain know? Is that on his property? Just as a kind of
I
a
think part of that's on Dairy Queen's property.
Okay. Well, your committee is already looking at this, so can your committee discuss a specific action plan to alerting Cresswellians about the risk?
Riley Newman is willing to give some sort of presentation or maybe write up something for the paper to let people know. Or, I don't know what she's willing to do, but she's willing to do whatever is necessary. And she is the one that brought the information to us.
The state has got a lot of information out on it right now too, so we could maybe get some. They have a plan that's 74 pages long that nobody's going to want to really read.
No.
But maybe we can get some other materials and have them available at the front desk and things like that.
And then maybe if we know, like Cliff said, of specific spots where there's concentration of them, then maybe we can, somehow alert those owners of property about it.
That's not a bad idea. Maybe that's something that could be a charge for the committee, is to identify where the ash trees are and create a brochure that they give to the Dairy Queen and Dr. Bain and.
There's something to be said for a preemptive strike if most or all of the ash trees are gone, they'll just pass us by.
One of the problems is once the trees are infected, you cut them down, they're still infected. So the wood stays infected until the insects all die out.
So you got to get rid of that wood once you cut it down.
Where are you going to take the wood? You can't take it anywhere.
Yeah.
Is it good for burning?
Burn it.
Yeah, but
Okay.
it's hard to know where to.
So I like the idea of a new charge to the Parks Committee. It would have to do with ash trees, identifying locations, communicating with people who own those.
Developing some kind of a brochure or something that has a picture of the ash borer on it. Telling people that they need to cut down their ash trees and replace them with something else. We're also on the tree care plan. we're removing all of the ash tree recommendations for planting in Cresswell. So hopefully no one will be planting ash trees in Cresswell.
Okay.
If the trees were down and destroyed, then there wouldn't be anything for the ash borers to get into. But that's a big job if we don't have control over everybody's property.
Right, and burning, this is not a good season for burning.
So I put that on our list, Michelle, that we can talk about that at our next meeting, you and I and Kevin, and
Okay.
kind of begin crafting a charge. How's that?
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
So
from
just
your
the next
committee?
meeting's on the 16th of August at 10 a.m.
Okay, and thank you for the walking trail.
Oh, geez. This is what I've been most excited about.
Yes.
Is the walking trail map.
Well, I was saying thank you for sharing that and presenting it with us.
Oh, yeah. Curtis Thomas was so helpful. We all talked about what we wanted in the map, and he just listened to us and worked on putting our ideas together in a map, and I'm really proud of how well we've done on this. And Michelle's already uploaded it to the city site. We may not want to, eventually we might do like a 5-year, or have so many updates on this if we have some new paths, or we can just add that to the website easily enough without adding it to the map.
So I do have a question. Why is the BART trail on the high school and elementary school, why is that not included on here? That's the 1 mile loop of BART trail. No?
I don't know.
That's one of the best
Because the trails started off with streets.
Right.
And
Okay.
we used a street overlay to do the trail system. And there's no streets in the loop system at the high school.
Yeah, just that big open space comes right off Niblock.
We
goes right
talked
up Main
about
Street.
it, but
Okay,
we didn't have a way to do an overlay on it.
okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, Airport Commission.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The commission met last Wednesday, July 20th, for the regular quarterly meeting. During the public comment portion, we had one airport user, Born Dahlin. He encouraged the commission to add a little more content to the minutes. And then Manager Humble gave us updates. One of the core grant updates, one of them is close to closing. That's the taxi lane project that was done 2 years ago. And the FFA is working on an amendment to the grant, so hopefully within the week, we'll be able to close that grant and the 2 AIP grants that went along with it. And then there was an update on those generators. Again, the generators. This, believe it or not, they are in and they will be up on the 29th. And they will be online, they will be tested, and then training will be provided by Systems Inc. And then there was the EOC equipment. I think Manager Humble stated that she's just still trying to locate some of the equipment, like a brush or something for the runways. And then the big one, the runway construction, the design update, the airport closure may be pushed back a week. Still waiting for the grant to actually be put into the system so that the contractors can proceed. And did you ever get an update? Were they going to let you know? Wasn't that this week?
Yeah, and I left a voicemail and an email for PMI with the FAA, and I have not heard back.
Okay, so it's
So we're still in a holding pattern for the grant offer.
So tentatively, it's still the 15th through the 28th.
Right now,
Okay.
until I get otherwise.
Okay, and and let's see, North End Development, wastewater design is completed, and just looking at a contract to complete the testing that is required for that. And then we went on to new business, and there's a taxi lane improvement. Taxi lane improvements have been, those grants have been awarded but not received. And in 2021, those were applied for, and one of them is to build the taxi lanes, and the other one is to put in utilities for future hangars. I had a diagram, but I forgot it, and it's pretty a pretty nice little project that's going to happen at the north end of the airport. And then in 2022, Manager Humble applied for and has been given approval to take another grant from Corps to put in the second taxi lanes. And as she stated that as they were trying to figure out how the rest would be paid for, then the bill money, which was COVID money, came around, and that's going to help pay for that as well. So long story short, it should cost the city 1% of that project to be completed. And very hopeful that project would start 22 to 23 construction to start in the spring, tentatively. And the big one there is the public restrooms that will be on the end of one of the T hangars, right?
Correct.
Okay. Manager Humble does a good job of keeping track of all this stuff and grants and so forth. It's very complicated. Then we talked about setting a date for the airport strategic planning meeting, which I think we briefly discussed having that while the airport was down. And that is about all I have.
Okay, very good.
One last thing.
Go ahead.
A lot of these things that were discussed are in the strategic plan. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So we're working on all that, and it's in there.
Good. Okay, LCOG. LCOG has not met since I last gave a report, and we're not meeting till September. So no report from LCOG. Lane Act.
There was no Lane Act meeting for the month of July as the Worlds happened. And so Lane Act is meeting again August 10th, 2022 online if you all would like to join the Infrastructure Fund.
Okay, thank you. All right, so now we move to presentations. Everybody doing okay, or do we need a break? Everybody fine? Good, okay. Presentation, we'll begin with rain update. And Aksa?
Yes.
Aksa Khan.
Yes. Thank you everyone for having us today. I would just like to start again by showing our gratitude for your support, for inviting us into your community and for letting us serve the beautiful city of Creswell. As you can see with this beautiful image. Like the mayor said, my name is Aksa Khan. I'm the Lane County Venture Catalyst. I work with entrepreneurs to connect them with resources, to provide them with mentoring, to put on events, and you will get an overview of the progress that has been happening in the last few months. Can we have the next slide, please? So I have introduced myself, but Team Rural Lane County is, and especially for the city of Creswell, we have 5 people serving you, myself included. So we have Robert Gillen, who is our Deputy Director, joining me here today. Then we have Avery Pickett, who is our Policy Maker Education Director. And then we have Sean Tate, who is our Entrepreneur Advocate. Both of them work on entrepreneur advocacy with myself. I am the Lane County Venture Catalyst, but I am also the Advocacy Communications Coordinator. So oftentimes when an entrepreneur comes to me, whether they are looking assistance with a zoning change or a policy with their business that's not working, it is the 3 of us that collectively works together to provide them the support that they need. And apart from that, we have a Creswell EIC position, which is Creswell Entrepreneur in Community. So in every community that we get invited in, we try to not only support entrepreneurial activities, but also create a job over there. Previously, this position was held by a business owner here in Creswell, and now we are in the process of hiring someone new for that position. So stay tuned, you will soon have an announcement of who we have hired for that position. Next slide, please. So oftentimes people ask me, what is RAIN and what does it stand for? RAIN stands for Regional Accelerator Innovation Network. And our idea is to catalyze the entrepreneurial activities that are already happening in the communities that we serve. We connect entrepreneurs to different resources, whether that's looking for grants, whether that's connecting with advocacy, whether that is just connecting entrepreneurs. So someone might be a food raspberry jam vendor and they are looking to get their jam on the shelves, then who is the right person to talk to? That is one of the work that we do, making those connections happen, and contribute to the creation of the prosperous economy. Like I said, those connections, they all contribute to the creation of different ecosystem mechanisms that work in mysterious ways. Next slide, please. The reason why we have this picture here is because oftentimes when we think of infrastructure, we always think that it is the physical elements that exist in a community. However, as entrepreneurs and business owners know that while the physical infrastructure is very, very important, that is not all that entrepreneurs and business owners need in order to be successful. You need workshops, you need to be connected to capital that might always be traditional bank loans, it might be crowdfunding opportunities. You need to be connected to a mentor, someone who's already walked the walk, so you can have someone you can bounce off ideas with or even vent to, or have someone who understands the struggle. So that is all part of building the ecosystem and creating an infrastructure for startups. Next slide, please. And like I said, it's all about the invisible infrastructure, which is happening along the bonfire. And the reason why we have the bonfire picture is because a bonfire is never fun alone. So we have to do this work together. That is why it's always so important for us that I myself, our deputy director, we show up at the city council meetings. We present to you, we get your feedback to improve the work that we're doing, to listen into your ideas and to share the ideas of the community. So it's all about catalyzing the community together and working together. We know that we can't do this work alone. Next slide, please. So this is Jenny, who's the entrepreneur, and right now she's dealing with all of these things that are happening around her. So that involves talking to a realtor for looking for physical assets. That involves keeping in touch with the newest culture and media trends. That involves looking for a mentor where she can ask different questions about. That can be a lot and very overwhelming. So that is where I come in along with my team. We connect her to all these different resources, whether that's local and global market trends, whether that is growth projection. Oftentimes, my work is going into a physical space and asking them, what is next? Your business is doing great, but what are you going to do for your business in the next 10 years or in the next 10 months even? So that is where the venture catalyst or the EICs come in. Next slide, please. Here's a list of some of the MOU responsibilities that we have been able to achieve, and some of the things that we're currently working on. So meeting entrepreneurs in public spaces. We've held 21 events. I think I would have an updated number on the next slide, but when I made this slide, we had 21 events in different public spaces. That often includes activating public spaces. So spaces that might be not having enough business, or there might not be enough community gathering happening in those places, bringing back that entrepreneurial excitement and that business talk, whether that's around a pub, whether that's in a coffee shop. That might be different, and it varies according to the community and according to the business needs. Then bringing more national opportunities to entrepreneurs, to making sure that the beautiful city of Creswell is not just getting the recognition in Lane County, but across the state and also ultimately across the nation. And not ultimately across the globe, international. And getting entrepreneurs connected to physical spaces, like I said, working with a realtor, looking for commercial kitchen spaces, access to maker spaces, all these things have different avenues, and there's different asset maps that need to be created. And we all know this, that in the world of business, it's mostly about who you know and less about what you know. So a lot of my job is to network, to be the boots on the ground, and to talk to people and to know who is the right person to ask this question. Next slide, please. Here's a little bit more details. The amount, like I said, 21 was the last number, so we have more events have happened. As of June 22nd, we have had 23 events happen in person. We have, this is the new entrepreneurs that we have served, 19 of them, industries being served, 10, and we have accelerator, we have completed one pre-accelerator, one accelerator, and we have one starting this Wednesday. Now, what is an accelerator? An accelerator is a 10-week free workshop series that can, the pre-accelerator was focused on art, artists, vendors, creators, makers. It was called Art After Hours. The second one, which is the accelerator, it was called Rainmaker. It is a marketing class, I would say it to simplify it. And the next one that we have starting this Wednesday is Moneymaker. It is a financial accelerator program to help you understand how you can, if you're a first-time business owner, how you can manage your finances better and how you can keep those projections growing and how you can connect with different mentors regarding that. So I feel like I'm talking a lot. Do we have any questions, or should I wait for them in the end?
You're doing great. Yeah.
Okay. That's good, thank you. Next slide, please. So these are the current train events that are happening right now. We have the Cresswell Entrepreneur Meetup, which was previously known as Cresswell Business on Tap. We have changed the location, like I mentioned in the previous slides, that oftentimes we change the location of these meetups based on the feedback that we get from the community and based on the businesses that are needing more activation. So previously they were happening at the Roundup Tavern, and now they're happening at Cresswell Bakery. Next we have Mentor Mondays, which are typically hosted by the EIC in that position, and the previous EIC was holding them, which is where entrepreneurs get together with the EIC, ask them questions. A lot of times it's just working on your business plan, going through, tweaking out little details. Having that time allocated to work on your business, whether that's accounts, whether that's marketing ideas, is a very great way for you to keep pushing forward on your business idea, because a lot of times business owners don't really get that time, and they're always like, oh yeah, this is really awesome that you are holding me responsible for this time, so I can actually create my Facebook ad. So a lot of that time that's happening on those times. And then right now we are working on creating a food survey to further catalyze the food entrepreneurs, vendors, and creators to create closer partnership and collaborations between the city of Cresswell and the city of Cottage Grove. A lot of the work for this is still in progress. However, we have created an asset map, we have highlighted a list of all the businesses, we have created a food survey, but I will keep you guys updated with the progress as it is developing. Next slide, please. So what is next? Here at Train, our CEO, Caroline Cummings' mission is always like, what is next? You always have, as a business owner, you always have to be thinking about what can you do to improve your business. So right now, like I mentioned before, that we have the Moneymaker starting this Wednesday. We will have an EIC position coming up soon, so we will be having more events. We just hosted this image that you can see on Learn How to Raise Capital for Your Business starting at 10K. It was based on the idea of crowdfunding. Why I chose to highlight the amount 10K in the flyer is because a lot of times first-time business owners or people who have had financial restrictions in their business, 10K is usually the amount that's stable enough to get them capitalized and rebooted and get them off the ground. So that is why we are targeted on that amount. And apart from that, we have a very exciting webinar coming up soon, which I will be hosting over Zoom as well, on how to write grants and how to look for different grants, because we've had some recent successes with a lot of entrepreneurs applying for different grants and them raising that amount to take their business to the next round. So I will keep you posted with that, and if I don't, then you can find that information on our Facebook. We're always making sure that we are getting that information out there on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Next slide, please. So for this, I would hand it over to our Deputy Director, and he will take it from here. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Aksa. And if you could just go ahead 3 slides. I don't need to go through these individually. One more. Perfect, thank you. So, Mr. Mayor, councilors, I'm Robert Killen, Deputy Director of RAIN. And I just want to finish Aksa's statements with an explanation of why I'm here, why I'm in this role. For those of you who do know me, you know that my previous role was as the Director of the Lane SBDC, Small Business Development Center. Before that, I was with the Springfield Chamber for a number of years. And the reason I made this shift over to RAIN was because in my world, in my efforts to help businesses, one thing is largely lacking, and it's activation. It's being on the ground, going out and talking to businesses and talking to communities, finding out what they need and making it happen. And that's RAIN's model. And that's what I'm listing here. Our key value propositions are truly unique, and I just want you to make sure that you're aware of that. What we do isn't done by any other organization out there. We, like I said, number one, we get stuff done. We have people on the ground in communities doing the work, which is really unusual. You know, like the SBDC, I love the SBDC. There's huge value in having great and deep mentorship, which is what the SBDC provides. But the SBDC is an organization that waits for you to call and ask for help. They're not out in the community trying to, find somebody to help. We do leverage your investment. So you have made an investment in RAIN. We then use that to find state and federal dollars to continue to support you and support you at a level that exceeds what you're actually investing in. So know that that's happening for you. We always bring in people who have done work. They've been their own bosses. They have their own businesses. So they've truly walked the walk. And most importantly, in my mind, is this idea that we are investigative, not prescriptive. And I'll give you these 3 examples very quickly. In Grant County, we have a VC whose summer has been spent running a street fair that runs in John Day, Prairie City, and Canyon City. And the reason he's doing that is because that's what their communities decided they needed. They needed all of the entrepreneurs that are in their garages to get out into the community and make themselves known to their own communities. So that's what we're doing. In Lynn and Benton County, there are 7 or 8 different cities who've joined together, and they wanted a way to highlight their entrepreneurial potential. And so our VC up there has been, he project managed a series of videos that are essentially marketing videos for each of those communities saying, hey, if you are a business, consider our community. Come here. This is what we have for you. Because that's what the communities wanted. And then finally, Aksa, as our VC throughout Lane County, she responded to a need expressed by Florence initially, that they wanted to get their artist community better engaged as economic contributors. And so they put together Art After Hours as a business boot camp for creatives. Again, in response to what the community's asking. So we do a lot of different things, but as you're going to be talking about your strategic plan tonight, I want you to think about the fact that our job is to respond to your needs. So as you're looking at your strategic plan, if there's some aspect of the economic landscape that you would like to lean more deeply into, know that we're here to help you do that. We're not here to bring answers to you. We're here to help get you the answers you want. So just know that that's why we're here, and it's an honor to serve you. Thank you.
All right, council, do you have any questions for Okta? Or for Albert?
Do you work with startups that are maybe considering the route of nonprofit org?
Yes and no. So when we have our mentoring services, whether they are getting their business license, their nonprofit status, creating their business plan, looking for resources, that is where I will provide them mentoring and guidance. However, once they become a nonprofit and some of their work becomes in conflict with what I do, I usually refer them to other resources. So it's a mix of yes and no.
Okay.
Kelly?
I just wanted to say, I made a little note here to think about the grants workshop. I think one of the things that we as rural communities really struggle with a lot of times is how do we get those grants? How do we get those dollars? How are we the most competitive possible for that? And so I think any resources that we can give, I think just helps us be much more competitive. And so I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, me too, absolutely. It was actually asked by an entrepreneur out of Cresswell. So it will be open to all entrepreneurs in Lane County, but it was asked out of Cresswell's entrepreneur. That's why I decided to put it on the slideshow and wanted to highlight it. So I really hope that it can help the community and bring in some more money. Do we have any other questions? Yes.
Well, I'm curious, and you may not be able to tell us, but I'm just curious, what are some of the actual businesses in Cresswell that you have worked with, you are working with? Can you give us any examples? I'm looking on this and seeing on this report a list of a whole bunch of things, but I don't know if these are Cresswell or I don't know.
So one of the reasons why I didn't have all of the names for the businesses is because it is my job to maintain their confidentiality. However, we do make them sign a confidentiality agreement when they sign up for our services. So some examples I can share with you. One example is the lady that I had just mentioned who asked for the ground services is the Cresswell Salon Studio. So they have worked with Rain Services previously and were a recipient of $25,000 with a grant. She came back to me and we started working on a grant that she unfortunately wasn't able to get. However, we will be working together and targeting other grants. That is one example. Then our previous EIC, Seth Clark, he has been instrumental in not even launching the Blue Valley Bistro in Cresswell, but also being a mentor and a guide to other food vendors based out of Cresswell, getting their food products on his shelves and across other coffee shops in more metropolitan areas in Lane County. A third example that I would like to give is just this graphic store that just opened up next to the Cresswell Chamber. She is one of our entrepreneurs as well. We actually just connected. I met her at Seth's coffee shop and I bought her coffee and I was like, you should totally go for this. This can turn into a really big business idea. And she did, and now she just launched her own store. I helped her with her crowdfunding platform, doing the launch of her event, and hopefully more things will come to her. So these are just 3 examples off the top of my list.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions?
Any questions? Okay.
Thank you. One thing I would like to say before I go is a big shout out to Michelle for being a huge support and always listening to me and also providing me feedback on the things that I can do better, as that really helps us grow and evolve. And if you guys have any feedback at all on the work that I can do better and improve the model that we're working on, please feel free to catch me tonight or shoot me an email. I'm always very happy to get constructive criticism.
The question I had is, have you done something to get the community to let you know what they'd like to see happen in here? What kind of businesses they would like to have come into the community?
So I think I have answer for that. That's kind of all over the place. On all the entrepreneur events that we host, I always ask them to introduce themselves, just talk about the things that are working for them, and to talk about the things that they're needing support with. And that is how programs are formed that they can need support with. So oftentimes in those discussions and conversations, we move towards an area of like what the business community needs and what businesses are doing well and where to move towards that. Apart from that, we also, like I mentioned in the presentation, that we have finished food surveys. So a lot of the work that's being already done in Cresswell, because of its unique position and already existing entrepreneurial ecosystem, food seems to be a great economic driver for the community. And apart from that, I think Robert also wants to add a little bit towards your question about the survey that we just had.
Yeah, I would make the, I would state that most cities have their own comprehensive plans or strategic plans that they are working on and renewing. And from a big picture standpoint, what types of businesses do we want in our community? That's something that should be in the city's plan. And we don't usually go out and survey community members to find out what would they like to see. It's something we could do if we were tasked with that, but it's not typically part of our work.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we move from there to our audit presentation.
Hopefully everybody will stay awake for this presentation.
Okay, we're
We've
gonna
only
try.
got one note with you, so.
I only have one note with me, because most of this I have, it's up here, but as old as I am, what's up here might go away eventually.
Oh, goodness.
You want to go to the next slide, James? Everybody knows now, I call him James. He worked for me for 10 years. He went by James when he worked for me, so one of these days I might call him Jim, but I might shock him. I think you need to hit that like 8 times. So while he's doing that, that's it. While he's doing that, I have the history of telling jokes about accountants before I start my presentation. You know the difference between an auditor and a vampire? Vampires only suck blood at night. And you can kill a vampire by driving a stake through his heart. Auditors don't have any heart. That's what I do for our professions. Part of the audit, many of you heard me say this before, auditor's responsibility, you guys are technically responsible for the financial statements even though we draft them. Our responsibility is to make sure there are no material misstatements in the financial statements. What's a material misstatement? That is, by definition in our industry, if somebody were to read those financial statements and make a decision, our opinion is saying there's no mistakes big enough in there to change their decision that they've made. We're not saying there's no mistakes in there, we're just saying they're small enough they're not going to change anybody's decision. Now, we'll talk about findings in a little bit. We have some pretty technical findings, will be on the next slide. A little bit of difficulty this year with the federal grant. There's some question about some of the dollars and whether they're going to pay or not. And between James getting sick and now towards the tail end, as I was telling James in the hallway, we have another run of COVID, not in the office because it's never been in yet, but several people have had it outside the office and called and we said you can't come in. So fortunately, they have not been in the office, which is very important. So no corrected or uncorrected misstatements. I don't think there's any disagreements with James. There used to be when he was a Dallas Cowboys fan, but I think that's gone away. Management signs a representation letter saying you didn't keep 2 sets of books. Show me one, keep the other one in the closet. As far as we know, management hasn't consulted with other auditors, and James, if you'll just hit the next one. Keep on going until you find a single audit. So, Oregon has Oregon minimum audit standards of law. I think I told you this before, I've audited governments in Nevada, California, Oregon, Idaho. This is the only state other than New Jersey that has Oregon minimum standards for auditing their municipalities. One is you can't put money in, you can put money in any bank you want to up to $250,000. After that, they have to be on a list that the treasurer puts out. So you can go up the FDIC limit, any bank you want to after that, and we test that. There's a debt limitation based on the real market value of the city. We test that to make sure your general obligation debt's not over that limit. I've lost everybody now, but I'm trying to go as fast as I can. I know you got a lot to do. We do testing of your budget document. We're required to look at insurance. We test, there's certain things you can spend your highway, the gas tax money on. We test to make sure you haven't violated that. Oregon also has laws about what you can and can't put your money into in investments, and we test that. So as far as budget testing, one of the requirements is what's called the appropriation limit. In your, this is my note, so I don't forget it. Building department fund, you actually overspent your appropriation limit for materials by $1,166, which by statute is a violation of budget law. So what happens, you have that in the footnotes of the financial statements. At the back of the financial statements, we have an Oregon minimum standards letter that talks about it. Well, what's going to happen? That's the upshot. What's going to happen? If the state looks at your report, because they don't look at all the reports, and if they find that, they will write you, and probably Michelle, or maybe just the council, a letter and say, we noticed this, what are you going to do to fix it? You write a letter back, said, yeah, we'll try to do budget better. That's what happens. There's no penalties or anything else coming from the state. So that's not that big of a deal. And the other one, you had a lot of airport grants. That's why you were subject to the Single Audit Act. The Single Audit Act was passed by Congress way back in 1983, and I was an auditor back then when they passed it, so I've been doing this a long time. And what that says, if you spend a certain amount of federal dollars, you're subject to federal requirements. And one of those requirements for most grants is you have to file a report, in this case with the FAA, at least annually. I know there's some problems with your FAA liaison and all that, but that report didn't get filed. So, and I'll use an example of another city we did. They had a HUD grant, and they were supposed to file a similar report, and they didn't. But the person at HUD sent an email and said, yeah, it looks good, and sent them all their money. But compliance auditing means if the rule says you file this, you have to file it. Auditing your books and accounting records, I have some professional judgment. But in the federal rules, if it says you must file this every year, you have to file it, period. So you have I call it a very hyper-technical finding, but it is a finding. James has written up a response because part of the requirements when you have a finding now, it didn't used to be this way. Management has to write a response to how you're going to correct that finding for the Single Audit Act. And it sounds like you'll be subject to the Single Audit Act for several years, because the requirement is if you spend more than $750,000 of federal money in 1 year, you're subject to that Single Audit Act. And your airport alone is going to do that, and you have some other smaller federal grants that tie into that too. I think there's one more. This, I like to just show changes in fund balance. So in the general fund this last year, your revenue, actually your expenditures beat up your revenue just slightly, it looks like on that slide. And what does that mean if you go one more, James? And this is something I just came up with almost 39 years ago. You know, how much money should a government have to survive? You're doing quite well. You're doing very well. You're down to 268 days. Basically, you can survive most of the year. And the way we calculate that number, we take your ending fund balance, and we take the expenditures that you had for the year and do some division and just say how many days could the city last if they didn't get anything else in. So you have a very healthy balance. Any questions?
Pretty good. You got another joke for us?
Got another joke? Okay. I've got a lot of jokes. Ask James.
We like the one about the Dallas Cowboys.
He was a big Cowboys fan. I think he's strayed from that a lot in the last several years. So this woman goes to the doctor. The doctor tells her she's got 6 months to live. She goes, there's nothing I can do about it. The doctor thinks for a while and says, well, you can marry an accountant. She said, well, I'll live longer? And he said, no, but you'll feel like you live longer. have any questions, several people here know how to get a hold of me, so.
Okay, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Okay, we're on to 4. Do we want to take a 5-minute break? Nope? Okay, so if you need a break, just jump up.
Cheryl, you need a break?
Need a break, jump up, okay. We're on to reviewing the parade permit ordinance, and do we have Lori coming online with us? Lori Cooper? Jim, you're gonna get her up? James? Okay, Lori, welcome. Can you hear us?
We can't hear her.
No, we can't hear you.
Do we have microphones that allow us her to hear us?
Yeah, the microphone above your head. That's glowing green.
Go ahead, Lori.
Hi, Lori.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Hi.
Hello.
Oh, all right. Should I just launch right into it, Ms. Val, or do you have an introduction?
Well, you can launch right into it if you'd like.
Okay, I'm ready to do that. So I'm here because, as you might remember, the Bivens situation, Julie Bivens, who was cited for holding illegal parade, we settled that case with the plea bargain, basically, and she pleaded no contest and paid a small fine. And what the city agreed to do on their side of it was to examine the parade ordinance. So I apologize I don't have a handout for y'all, but I think that'll come next time. I need a little direction from you, I think, before I prepare anything. Your parade ordinance is fairly outdated. It was adopted in 1981, and you know it's pretty good. There aren't any major problems with it. The major problem, I think, is that there's a requirement that if anybody wants to have a permit, they need to apply 30 days before the event. And there's been some court cases around the country and in the Ninth Circuit over the past, what have been 35, 4 years now we're talking since you adopted your ordinance, which say that's too long of a time and could effectively chill speech. Parades are First Amendment type gatherings sometimes, and so the 30 days is a little bit long. So what I did was look at some other parade ordinances from around the area, Creswell and the state in general. And what I'm finding is 48 hours is generally accepted amount of time that other cities have adopted for a parade permit. Now, if there's going to be some big event where streets are going to be closed down and you need to coordinate with the organizers or some big festival or something like that, you can require a longer time. But generally, 2 to 3 days is about the amount of time you should require to look at a permit and act on it, which can be difficult because the way your code is written is it's council who decides whether that permit is issued or not. So a lot of other cities say either the police chief or their city manager is designated to be the first line decider about parade permits. So that's one suggestion I have is besides changing 30 days to either 48 or 72 hours for getting your permit in, that you also have your code has some flexibility in your code that would be the city council or the city council's designee that would need to examine these parade permits. And typically codes that say city council or the council's designee, it's usually the city manager who ends up looking at those applications when they come in and issuing the parade permit. And then when there's an appeal, your code says that if somebody is upset and with a denial or some restrictions you put on a parade permit, appeal goes to your municipal judge, which is, kind of 50-50. Some cities have it go to municipal judge, other cities have it go to the council. So that's another thing you can decide on. But, I'm sorry, go ahead. Somebody have a question?
No.
Oh, okay, sorry, I thought I saw the mayor raise his hand. I I think that if you give me some direction tonight, I can come back to you with a very simple code amendment for you to adopt it. One of your future council meetings. There's no big rush unless you all want to do it quicker, but the agreement we have with Ms. Bivens is that it should be done within 12 months of her plea, which was, I believe, at the end of January or beginning of February. So, we have a while to do this, but I understand if you want to just take care of it in the next month or two, we can do that as well. So, one other thing I will tell you that I see in other council or other cities' ordinances is a section that allows spontaneous gatherings. I apologize, I haven't looked at your code elsewhere, but it's not in your parade permit section. But to allow people to gather in parks or in public places, not block traffic, not in parades, but gather in parks or public places on short notice in response to something that's happening in the news or some political rally, something like that. There's a short little paragraph we could add to your code that allows that kind of thing. If you don't have it, it's not legally fatal or anything like that, but it's just something I've seen in some other city codes that you might want to think about. And then the final thing is insurance. I looked through my files and I didn't see a copy of your parade application that you have folks fill out. But your code doesn't talk about insurance requirements. Sometimes applications will talk about insurance requirements, but some cities require insurance, and there's a process where if the organization who wants to have the parade can't afford insurance or doesn't have it, there's accommodations that can be made by the city if the risk manager of the city thinks it's not a big risk to issue a parade permit. So insurance and fees are an area that you might want to update your code a little bit in that area as well. So those are the major topics I had. I'm kind of rambling, and it would be helpful if you had the code in front of you. I apologize if you don't. But you have a pretty simple code, but it says what it needs to say. It just needs to be amended to comply with some court cases that happened since 98. So I'll shut up and see if anybody has any questions.
We do have a copy of it in our work session packet, so.
Of the current code.
Of the current code, yes.
Not of the proposed code.
No.
Right, and the proposed code would be as simple as changing that 30 days to, go ahead.
So Manager Amber, what's your thought on time framework? 48 hours, 2 to 3 days? Is that reasonable?
Gosh, I'm shocked, because generally when we have a parade, we have a lot of requirements for a parade. We have requirements for security, and we have requirements for blocking off the roads, which we don't do. We have requirements for bathrooms and requirements for letting people know that you're going to be in the road. It just, that shocks me that we could only have 48 to 72 hours to decide. And what would be the basis for denying a permit? I mean, we obviously, they're not going to be that organized. They're going to be unorganized demonstrations is what you're talking about. You're not talking about a parade. You're talking about a demonstration. And could we make them stay on the sidewalk? Can we make them stay out of the street? What can we do when somebody comes and says they want to have a parade?
Yeah, so I think those timeframes I mentioned, I'm hearing it I hear an echo of my voice, and I keep thinking if somebody interrupted, sorry about that. So it sounds to me that maybe what you're talking about could be considered a special event as well, not really just a parade where you're going to have a big festival or the 4th of July parade. It's always within the applicant's discretion to say, no, it's not reasonable for you guys to get the city to get a permit back to me in 48 hours. Of course, it's more complicated than that. I realize that. And so if that's the case, somebody can waive that time frame. And also, if it's a very complicated event or very large parade or lots of streets, to be closed, then I think the city would have some leeway to say, hey, this is too complicated. Or as long as you start working on the permit within 48 hours and have a time certain that you don't keep delaying or, do something that would make the parade organizers think that they can't have the parade, so,
But
There is also, I think,
that's exactly what we're facing. We're facing a person who wanted to have a parade and wanted to have wanted to put on a big parade and block lots of streets and have a festival, and we would have had 48 hours to say yes or no?
No, I mean, if it's a big festival, no. That's why I would need to look at your code if you have a special event section of your code or fairs or something like that I have not seen that could be talked about in, in that context, not just a parade.
We have a special event permit that's not in the code that I could send you.
Yeah, why don't you, I may actually, sounds kind of familiar, but I would like you to send that to me, that would be great. And we can make this, like I said, there's not a big rush, it's good we're talking about this now, because we can do a couple code changes to sort of, I know what you're saying about the situation you faced last year at 4th of July. I think there's also some things you can put in your code, I've also seen another code, and I did like to mention this, I'm sorry, that you can adopt administrative rules that talk about restricting days and times for events and parades, or designate certain streets as off limits, because they're too busy or there's too many businesses, or it would be appropriate to have parades on certain streets, you can do that. So you can get more specific in those types of rules. I was just looking at the parade permit process itself, and it really is 48 hours, 72 hours is what I've seen in all the other codes. So it's interesting what other cities do, and I can find out if you'd like me to, how they handle the type of thing where you're just not able to react quickly and somebody wants to happen in the next state. That's just unreasonable. So I can find out more for you on that.
And we're talking really about the difference between a demonstration and a parade. Is there any? Are there any sort of boundaries that you can put around a demonstration?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. You don't need to let people obstruct your public rights of way for stuff like, if there's parks or town centers or what have you, they can do it there. You don't have to allow people to use your streets. So that's something we can talk about in more detail as well. I can find other examples of other codes that talk about allowing people to gather in parks or, even the sidewalks, as long as you're not obstructing pedestrian traffic, people can march back and forth on sidewalks with signs, as long as you're not obstructing, people wanting to use the sidewalks for regular commerce, things like that. So there's all kinds of different options. If you want to just do a quick amendment to your parade code, I could look and see if we could try to do it where it's only a week, for example. I guess I need to hear from the city, how much time do you think you would need to process a parade permit if it's a big deal, a big parade?
I'm going to interrupt just for a minute. So I know you have a question. We're going to hold your questions until we've had a chance to do some interaction and council discussion. But I will wrap around back to you, okay? Okay, so the question was, how much time do you need? And Michelle said 30 days.
No, I was just.
Okay.
I can't say how much time I need. It really depends. For the 4th of July, it takes a while to put on that parade and that festival, and it all gets done under a special events permit. But for a demonstration, I suppose we could do it in 48 hours, but again, I don't know. I need more information on what a demonstration is going to be and what parameters we are allowed to put on it so that it doesn't become a riot.
Well, I think the people that we were butting heads with, so to speak, last year, who went ahead and had the parade without a permit, they called it a parade. I think they're gonna disagree that they need a special use permit as a demonstration. So that's just another, just.
Yeah, but that's what we're talking about, is the difference between a constitutional right to hold a demonstration versus a
Shutting
special
down,
event for a parade that shuts down a majority of our main street.
I agree with you. I just think that they're gonna push the boundary between what's a parade and what's a demonstration. So,
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like having a hard time talking about
If
this,
we-
because they're very different things.
can you bring us an example of maybe Coburg's code or, Veneta or another city of similar size?
Well, Harrisburg has a parade.
Yes, they have a big one.
Veneta, I don't know that they have a parade, particularly like we're thinking of. Coburg, I don't know that they do. Harrisburg is probably the closest I think of that
Coburg has a
has
street fair though.
a
Sorry
parade.
to interrupt.
Cottage Grove.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things I'm wrestling with
But we did have a demonstration as well.
on the 4th of
That
July.
had not on the 4th of
Oh,
July.
okay.
But another,
At City Hall.
at City Hall, we had a demonstration
Streets and-
that had no permit whatsoever.
Yeah.
So one of the things I'm wrestling with,
And it turned into a mob.
as we look at this, and I forgot, Lori, and
Yes.
this was adopted in 1981. And this particular section specifically addresses parades and processions. And as I look it over, it addresses parades like what we're thinking of, 4th of July, and it addresses funeral processions. Those are the only two things addressed here. It doesn't address all kinds of other public gatherings,
Right,
like you're talking about.
right.
So it makes me wonder whether we need to take a little deeper look into the process that the city has for allowing public demonstrations or gatherings, as well as parades, and maybe even funeral processions, although that's pretty brief there, and but we do have some. I was a part of a really big one when Rick Higgins passed away earlier this year. It makes me think that with this being 40-some years old, that maybe there's some things we need to address that weren't even in here, like public demonstrations and the process, as well as streamlining the process so that it doesn't have to come to council, because the council only meets at a certain time. So it does make a lot of sense to me that it would go to the city manager for approval. Does that make sense to you?
Well, based on what will I approve or disapprove? I don't know. We don't have any standards for that.
I mean, this includes some things. And on the back, I mean, this language here does include some things that you would use to approve or not approve.
Right, but
But that might be something
I would
we
like to
wanna-
have clear standards on what, if I'm going to be approving or disapproving this kind of thing, I would like to have clear set standards on
Yep.
what is allowable and what isn't.
So I think that would be something, Laura, you could help us with, is if you could find some models of other, maybe like-sized communities that have parades, have public events, that could give us some standards. Because if the city manager's gonna make that decision, then that city manager wants to know they've got their back covered, because there's some clear guidelines on how you approve or disapprove.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right, so criteria.
I don't want to approve something that turns into a mob, and I don't want to disapprove something that's legitimate.
Yep. I do think
So-
the timeline
so those kind
is.
of words-
Go ahead, Lori.
Those kind of words, those kind of words are exactly what we should discuss, because, what's legitimate and what's not, you can't really look at the content or why people are demonstrating, and make those decisions because of free speech concerns. But, if you look at your code right now, it says that, parade permits can be revoked if there's actual violence has been caused by the parade organizers, or it might cause, endanger public safety, things like that. So we can have sideboards on that, but you just gotta be careful not, just because, I won't use examples, but certain groups where things are turned into rise in other cities, that puts you on notice. Maybe you have more police protection or more, terms on their permit, but you gotta be careful about just saying, well, I'm not gonna give them a permit, because we've seen what happened in Eugene when this particular group had a quote-unquote parade or demonstration. So you just, that's why it's good, like you said, Michelle, it's good to have some criteria in your codes that are objective, so that everybody knows what is going to be looked at when you decide whether to allow an event or a parade.
So I have a thought, just throwing this out, because this is the first time we've seen this, right? First time I've seen this, today, whenever. And I think we do have some concerns about timeline, about how we would, if we were authorized the city manager to do this, what kind of guidelines, whether there's other things that need to be included in this, we need to look at, other permitting. My thought would be that we hold this, that we give some specific directions to Lori, what we'd like her to look into, and that we set it aside for tonight, and we come back to it in September, because we don't have it on tap for August. That would give us all some time to do more thinking about this. You're all free to do your own research into other communities that have parade things and see it, but Lori can do that. Michelle might have time to do some of that, but we can come back to this in September, having really thought about it and get more information. And we could throw out to Lori tonight any other specific things we want her to look into for us. What do you think?
Could we have different timeframes for different types of events?
Well, that's one thing we can discuss at a later time, sure.
Right, I think that might be helpful.
So what kinds of things do we want Lori to look into for us and get information to us so that come September we can digest that and have another conversation about this? Michelle, you need to jump in here too. What kinds of information do you want to get from Lori to help us?
Well, I need to be not the only one talking about this.
Well, could I ask a question
Yes.
of Lori? Lori, so the 48 hours or 72 hours that you're speaking of, did that come out of court cases that were ensured compliance with the U.S. Constitution? Because that's what the agreement is asking for, that we are in compliance with the U.S. Constitution. Is that a proven fact that 48 hours brings us in compliance?
I would need to go back and look at the court cases. They're all over the map. It's very fact specific. But the fact that many other cities have that time frame, 2 or 3 days, makes me believe that there is some direction from the courts that not to drag feet and prevent parades from happening. So yes, I think that is constitutional, because there's some bigger cities that have that kind of language, and I know their attorneys, and I think they're compliant with the Constitution.
Okay.
So,
okay. Well, that's what I just wanted to make sure that was actual factual, that was squelch the argument somewhere else, that fixed the problem. So and if not, the 30 days, exactly how is our 30 days not in compliance with the U.S. Constitution?
Yes, like I explained earlier, I think it's too long. From some of the court cases that have come out, they're not black and white. It's not 48 hours is the max. It just, like I said, it's fact specific, depending on how big the event is and everything like that. But I think 30 days is just from what I've gathered and talked with some other attorneys and municipal court judges. It's pretty long. It's what used to be in city codes, and that's changed over the last 40 years. So 30 days is probably too long. 48 hours may be too short for a city of your size. I mean, I think that we can make the argument that you don't have many resources, you don't have lots of staff to be working, around the clock for 48 hours to get a parade permit all gussied up. So I think there's some room to work between 48 hours and 30 days, but I do think 30 days is excessive under the court cases.
Okay, and then just one more comment in regards to our ordinance right now, as I read this, it sounds like if they have a gathering of 99 people, they don't need a permit? Is that correct? A permit shall always be required if a procession of people utilizing the public right-of-way and consisting of 100 or more persons, or 10 or more vehicles. So if they're at 99 people, they don't need a permit?
Right.
Or if they have 9 vehicles, they don't need a permit?
Yeah, that's what it says.
That would create quite a disturbance down the streets.
But it also begins by saying you can't organize or participate in a parade which may disrupt or interfere with traffic.
And then it goes on.
Without obtaining a
And then it
permit.
goes on.
So you can have a permit that will disrupt traffic and not have a permit if you have less than 100 people. So I mean, some of that language, I think, needs to be looked at.
Yes, that's where, and that's where I think it does.
Yep.
That's where I'm going with that.
Now, that's where I think a little deeper dive into this, to
Yes.
really make sure.
Does that qualify as a special permit or a special event if it's 99?
Yeah.
And so forth. So, because yes.
And who's gonna count?
Who's gonna count? And then I think it would be pretty unheard of to pull off a parade that size with a 48-hour notice with all the things that need to be happen in town. So.
Well, Lori, so if you drive into Eugene when they're getting ready to have a marathon or Springfield, which they do, or a road race, that signage goes up generally more than 48 hours in advance. Oftentimes a week ahead of time you'll see the signage up. And those are usually major thoroughfares they're using for these marathons, which leads me to believe that in Crestwell we have one main thoroughfare. One main thoroughfare, and that's where parades all have happened historically. To where we have to have a significant time framework to where we can notice the public, line up traffic. So I guess as you're looking, I would like you to look into the 48-hour, 2 to 3 day thing. What else is there in that city's code that has to do with what kinds of roadways can be used at that short of a notice? Because I doubt you could go into Eugene and use Franklin Boulevard with 2 days' notice that you're going to shut it down for a parade.
We do have in our code that the permit request can be denied if it's an inconvenience to the citizens of the city. So I think that, just my opinion, I'm just one person, but that covers us if somebody comes on a Monday and says to Michelle, we want to shut the street down Wednesday afternoon for circus performers. And she can say, no, that's when our streets are highly traveled, we have the LTD bus coming in, blah, blah, blah. She can give a reasonable, response. And it's section E in our code.
Which says city council, not designee.
Which says city council.
Not designee.
I agree with a shorter than 30 days. I agree with it should be either Michelle or Michelle, mayor and council president, or maybe it should be Michelle and Cliff together reviewing the permit applications. That's who you're gonna go to.
And the police.
And the police who work for us on contract. So maybe we name, those 3 individuals making the joint decision. And then to tag on to what Alfonso said, I would just get rid of the 99, the 100 people, 10 cars.
Something needs to be adjusted there. I don't know how, but better language.
Yeah, I would just I think more than 10 people is a inconvenience to people that want to use the library crosswalks.
Kevin?
I'd want to make sure that one of the things that we address is what drives the need for insurance. So
That's a good
it may kind of help us with some of the decision making as far as like what's a 2-day, 5-day, 10-day permit or whatever the heck, the distance or amount is. Because we may find that those kinds of requirements add time that, for somebody to actually, for us to be able to verify the insurance and things like that. So,
true.
Okay.
Shelley?
Yeah, I was gonna say, one other thing that might be helpful for us as well is to have kind of a definitions area within the code as well. So like, what is the difference between, like, as we even colloquially will talk about, what's the difference between a parade or a demonstration, right? Or a funeral procession versus kind of a like 4th of July parade, right? Or closing down streets for a 5K as opposed to, again, just breaking news or whatever that is. And so that might also help us give us all more guidance as to what are we, when we're talking about this, what are we actually really talking about?
Yes. And the section that talks about prohibited activity, 10.30, I think to really have to think, for us to think through what is a prohibited activity. You brought that up, Alonzo, but, you know, are there prohibited activities that we're going to prohibit? And what's the basis of that? So is there anything else we'd like to give direction to Lori on about information we need to make a really good, this lasted 40 years, we need to make a really good one that will last a while.
When Michelle retires, we don't have pandemonia.
Okay, so now I want to go to Kelly, right? Kelly.
So I've only been here a couple of years, 3 years in the community, and I joined the Chamber of Commerce, and I got to be the one to do the parade this year. It was such a blessing because my background is in nonprofit volunteering and stuff like that. My concern is there's no way that we could apply for a permit 48 hours before, because we start January with a board of us who we're pretty new to it. Now we kind of got our feet in the ground, and we've gotten books and stuff like that now for these. My concern is that law enforcement is such a big part of it for us, then they are so taxed at their limited budget, we really need to consider that. And plus risk management, a 48-hour prior to demonstration sounds more like some things that happened in the Portland area that we don't do in this community, because we do plan things out. We do, yearly events like the 4th of July and then the tree lighting. And I know the chamber is wanting to do more of this. So I'm thinking maybe even yearly event could be part of that wording. But there's no way that we could do this, and risk management wise, it's a huge undertaking. I would feel concerned for the council itself. But I've also been part of the Function for Junction in Junction City, and they shut down Highway 99. And that is a huge undertaking. I did all the hundreds of volunteers to watch those barricades and make sure I went around and everything. And this year was the first year I wasn't involved for that. And unfortunately, they had a really horrible mishap, because my volunteers were trained. Nobody gets through this. We have to stop them. And I know that I like having that 30-day window, because in January, we're like, okay, in April, we need to apply for this so that we have time. I don't know how you can put off a good event within 48 hours. I just don't know. And I think
it doesn't prevent you, the code doesn't prevent you from applying early.
Right.
You can apply
Exactly.
early.
Right.
But yeah, it means that once we get the application, the city has 48 hours or
Right.
whatever to
But not the
respond.
participant.
Right, but that still means that we have only a very short window to get the policing and the security and all of that.
I think we all agree 48 hours doesn't work for our city.
Well, but if you apply for a... Go ahead, Lori.
Just put that out there,
I was gonna say, what Michelle said, I mean, it doesn't mean that if the clock starts ticking the minute somebody turns an application in, and then you have to have it out in 48 hours. It's really the applicant that would drive that, and I think that 48 hours in these cases is aimed at sort of spontaneous demonstrations or things that pop up. People are angry about, some Supreme Court decision, for example, or something, and they want to take to the streets. That's really what that's aimed at. But that doesn't mean that just because somebody turns in an application and they've agreed, hey, we want 30 days, we want 45 days to work on this with the city, doesn't mean that you have to get, the permit out 48 hours. So I'm sorry for that misunderstanding. We can have the code worded where it makes it clear that that's not the intent.
Okay.
Well, that brings up, and again, under prohibited activities, we've made reference tonight to the parade of a year ago and the demonstration of the year prior. This talks about parades, this is 10.30.0 went over, parades that disrupt or interfere traffic. And then it talks about processions that utilize public right-of-way. Well, that could be people standing on the sidewalk.
Where are you at?
10.30, right here. Point prohibited activity.
Okay.
So, when the people gathered for the demonstration, they were primarily on the sidewalks or in the library parking area. There were times they blocked traffic, and I know we had deputies out there trying to mitigate that. It wasn't actually a procession, it was a gathering of people standing on sidewalks, 4 different sidewalks.
There were vehicles that were a procession.
Okay, yes, okay. So part of it just has to do with the specificity of this to make sure what we're pinpointing. Can people get all angry about something and gather downtown and stand on sidewalks and hold the banners up? Well, that's not technically a procession, but it is in the right of way. So they could be blocking it for someone who needs to get through. And do we permit that? Do we not permit that? You know, that's, again, we need something here that is as specific as we can and addresses the areas of concern that we have in Crestwell.
Right.
I believe that Sergeant Denham, and I could be wrong, but I recall a conversation with him, and I believe that that was legal. That was a legal demonstration. The only thing they could not do was block the sidewalk, block the entire sidewalk, and they could not be out in the street. And that was perfectly legal. They didn't need a permit, they didn't need anything, and that was their right. And people have the right to do that.
So that would not fall under
Absolutely
policy
not.
we do.
A giant flag,
That's a
and they did go through the
constitutional
street. So that, in that case, I think that the giant flag going down to Oregon Avenue was a problem. But they didn't.
That was the parade.
No, that was a different,
The demonstration.
yeah.
Okay, okay.
Mhm.
So we have a lot
Yeah, can I interrupt for a minute
Yes.
here? So, yeah, I think I heard somebody around the table say that's a constitutional right. People have the right to demonstrate, but they don't have the right to block the sidewalk or the street unless they have a permit. And unless the permit has, conditions about safety and so on. So people could be cited for if they're demonstrating and they're blocking the sidewalk. They could be cited or they block traffic. They could be cited with, misdemeanor, traffic offense or whatever. So that's, you're right, it starts to get complicated real complicated real quick. But I think that there's been some examples of other cities. I worked for Medford for 15 years. We went through these kind of discussions several times in my 15 years there. And they have a pretty good ordinance in Medford that works fairly well. There haven't been any problems that I know of. So I think having definitions like somebody suggested is a really good idea. And just having your code just a little bit more detailed than how it currently is will help you. And it's not going to deal with every problem that comes along, I'll tell you that. From working in Medford, we thought we had a pretty good code, and then the question comes up, business owner downtown, so somebody walking back and forth in front of my business with a sign because they're mad at me about something. Can you come and kick them off? And we said, no, you can't, as long as you're not blocking sidewalk traffic, they have the right to walk in front of your business with their sign, because that's a public right away. So anyway, I'm just saying what I'll work with you all on is the best, to come up with the best solution we can for your city. Doesn't mean it's going to be ironclad or foolproof, but I think the point is, and I think what Ms. Bivens' objective, or one of her objectives was and her attorney's objective was to get this ordinance looked at hard by the council, because it has been sitting on the books for so long without really being updated, and it probably needs some update, so.
Okay, so is there any more direction? Now, Don?
Well, I had kind of to add on something. The special event permit is also, if you take some of the questions and things that are asked on that and look at perhaps putting those in the code, that's just a thought. Because there are questions like, are you going to block traffic? And are you going to, require certain things? And if that's in the code where it says, you have a minimum of 2 weeks or 3 weeks or something, if you're going to do this or that, then it allows people to say, oh, I'm going to have to do this earlier. if you put some of those things in the code, because that's a lot of what the 4th of July, has to do. And so you can also then on the back side of that, I think, look at, they have to produce proof that they have X, Y, and Z. So do you have barricades rented or flaggers or something along those lines that are required, and have some kind of a minimum of, I don't know, maybe it's 48 hours. If you don't show you have proof of these things within 48 hours before the event, then it can be canceled. And those are things that are tangible reasons that the council or the manager or whoever else can say, you haven't shown proof, you can't go forward. And so anyway, those are just some thoughts of maybe how you can kind of corral the times as well as proving that people have made the stipulations, that they can perform those stipulations.
That's correct.
Okay. Do we feel like we've given Lori good direction she can work on? And is
Yes.
September a good timeline for us? That would be 2 months. So we'll put on our September work session agenda, which I don't even know we have yet. Michelle and I'll talk about that. But we'll put on for September work session that we will return to this discussion. Okay? All right. Thank you, Lori.
All right, thanks, guys.
You have a good
Thank
week.
you. I'll be back.
Okay.
All right, bye-bye. Bye.
All right. I've got to make a note of this.
Did Michelle Kennedy show up?
I don't think it should be all on your shoulders to make the decisions. I don't think it should be all up on your shoulders to make the decisions.
Oh, no, that's why we have a city council.
Right. No, I mean, when it gets to the point where somebody's making decisions on the,
Well, if you got a good enough code, I don't mind making decisions, but if it's.
Well, and I
if
think
it's-
having a criteria and a guideline.
Well, then if it's a quick turnaround, what are we gonna have we're gonna have to call a special meeting to take it to the council to approve a permit?
No.
Yeah, that's not,
I think you named the city manager, I'm just being
Designee.
redundant.
Okay,
Those positions.
here we go.
All right.
We are on to the strategic plan with Michelle Kennedy.
And she's not on,
She's not on.
for some reason, she's not here tonight.
She's not here tonight. Well,
She
let's
was
spend
supposed to be, but.
let's spend a few minutes and then we'll communicate with Michelle, because I know I have some things that are minor.
I think it looks great.
Me too, I have two minor things.
I move to approve the strategic plan.
I have,
But we can't do that tonight.
Well, you need to pick, try to lighten the mood.
You need to pick a cover.
I didn't get a nice
Oh, yeah,
colored
I
cover,
did have
so.
I did have a picture.
Is that what all these samples are for?
Yeah.
So we can pick a
Yeah,
cover?
yeah, they're to pick a cover.
Okay, so let's pick a cover. Let's start with since Tammy said a lighter mood, let's start with picking a cover.
Oh, these are three options?
Are there 3 options or 4
So
options?
there are 4 options at the end. 1, 2, 3, 4. I like option 3.
Well, okay, now, I got them all out of order, so tell us what,
Oh, the one with the little.
hold up the
boy,
pictures
I
and
like
show us
that.
which is option 1 and 2 and 3 and 4.
This is number 1.
And that's the front cover, what we had here. That's number 1. Okay,
This is number 2.
that one right there. Let's see, that's over here, number 2, okay.
This is number 3 with the script in the middle.
3. Script in the middle.
And this is number 4.
Okay. All right, so everybody take a look, and then we'll just have a quick vote. The most important vote we'll have all night. Actually, we don't vote, we just all decide.
Right.
Okay, so number 1, this one here. All right? Number 2. Number 3.
I like numbers.
Number
On the screen.
4.
Oh, it's up on the screen.
Jim, you got one?
Easier to look at.
On it.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Jim.
This is going out to the viewing audience.
Thank you, James.
So what, are we doing a raise of hands, or what are we gonna do here?
Well, let's take a look first so you can decide, okay?
Should we do a secret ballot?
No, please no.
Always keeping us on the straight and narrow.
Okay,
I like
So-
the one with the little boy.
we're looking at this one here first.
Yeah, I like
We're calling that one number 1. So just raise your hand if that's the one you like the best.
I'm kind of tied between that one.
So,
I kind of like 2 and 3.
Misty kind of likes that one. Go to the next one, Jim. This is going to be number 2.
I like that one.
And that one.
Number 2.
I like that one.
Number 2 has a sergeant, or has a deputy on it that was fired from.
Oh.
Oh, for crying out loud.
Which leads to one of my little things. We'll get to that later.
Okay,
I can see
so
one not doing that.
number 2.
Yeah.
Scrap 2. Okay, number
Well, not
3.
necessarily.
Okay, how many like number 2 here? Number 2. Kevin likes number 2.
Yeah.
Alonzo, Misty, okay, 3.
With an edit.
Go
Yes.
to number 3. Go number 3. That's my favorite one, because right in the middle it says the friendly city and what it is, strategic plan. Top picture, beautiful picture. Bottom picture shows an actual activity with all kinds of kids.
Oh, we have to.
Fire truck.
eliminate that one.
It's obvious that's not a demonstration. That's a gathering of people.
Well,
I-
the reading board says July 4th.
So I like that one.
May I comment?
Yes.
What I don't like about it, I don't like the font. I find the font hard to read.
I don't like the word.
script,
Yes.
yeah, I would like the
If
script.
If it wasn't for the font, I would really like it, but I'm not crazy about that font. It's hard to read.
I don't like the 2 pictures, it's too busy for me. I like both of the pictures and what they show and represent, but not like that.
I love the city hall, the
It's a
fall
little
color, the school bus.
Too busy.
Okay. So then let's do number 4. I don't like that one because it just jumps out at you that it's the 5-year strategic plan.
And the friendly city, it seems a little too big.
Yeah.
The
that's big.
the bottom portion hogs up too much of the photo.
This is for the book that nobody's going to want to read.
That's not true.
Everybody's gonna read it.
It's not that
To
big.
get
Oh,
your
okay.
chair on the parade route,
I
you're
like
gonna
the
be
second
tested
one
on
with the
this.
friendly city on it.
Is that this,
I'm
the
kidding.
second one
I'm
is
sorry.
this one?
Yes, but it would be great if it had the friendly city on it
Or
somewhere.
Our,
That's what's missing.
Well, we could take off the
1 and 4 are very
The
similar.
second one has a deputy on it.
I can't
though,
handle the.
but we could change the photo.
But I love that it's a
No,
kid.
No, we can't.
Why? Why?
What photo are you going to choose?
Well, I think
Something
that
from the Christmas thing.
a photo of our current Sergeant Chase would be nice, along with the one that's in here that has denim. It should be replaced. Why, what would be so hard about getting a photo and replacing it?
Do we have
We have to
some?
have photos taken.
Take a photo.
How about the photo with Commissioner Gunderson at the bikeway? The bike wayfair. What
The
is that
bike
called?
wayside.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So you're saying, take this photo out in the middle, and you have a different photo in mind that Michelle knows what it is?
Well, it's
Not
in
yet.
the strategic plan. It's on page 24 in our packet. I don't know what page it is on the.
I was
Oh,
thinking
here.
that
Ed
the,
Gunderson with the bicycle.
This
Yeah.
one here?
Misty's there. Yeah.
This one.
This one.
Oh, yeah.
Or we could take a picture of the new Second Street Park.
I kind of like this one of the public works person in the snow.
You know, we only have a limited number of pictures.
Yeah.
We only have a limited number we can find.
Yeah.
And we sent all the pictures that we had to them.
Okay.
And
We could put the airplane there. That's on the Facebook cover.
yeah,
Or we have pictures of the new airport signage that you can see from I-5.
no, we don't want to put that one.
How about, if these are the four,
But we've got the
let's narrow them
airplane
down
right
to two.
here.
Yeah, the airplane
Yeah.
is,
So council, I don't know how much time you really want to spend on the picture.
Right.
So Misty made a good recommendation that we just, of the four, we just settle on one tonight and we call it good.
Okay.
Yep.
Because we really want to spend our time on the plan.
Yes, we do.
We don't want to spend more time taking
Well, I think
pictures.
Well, I think the plan is
four
okay.
So
is,
go back to
I
1, 2, 3, and 4, okay, Jim?
Okay.
think 4 is,
I think we're going to eliminate 2 only because it's the deputy that no longer is with us.
Right,
Are we good with that?
yeah.
So we have 1, 3, or 4, so show. Okay, so that one there, there's 1, there's 1, there's 1. Okay, so let's go back to the top again. There you go, y'all get a vote. There's 1 there. How many like that one?
Can we get the font changed though? On this
Maybe the
script font?
friendly a little smaller.
To what? See, you're telling me things that I have to convey to
Yeah.
a graphic artist. So you want a font changed, but what do you want it changed to?
Well, the one that we didn't like, that font was fine. The one with the sheriff, the deputy, that font right there.
Block? That's
Yep.
it, that one
Yep.
doesn't have the strategic, or that one doesn't have the friendly city on it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, well, I'm talking just about the font.
right.
Whatever font that is, tell them we want
Make
that
it
font.
small like that.
Okay,
Well,
how many
actually, I
people,
like that.
let's do
You guys
this.
are getting into
Yes,
the
we're doing
graphic
weeds.
artist
Yes, we
part.
are. We
and-
are.
We're in the weeds.
And
Okay.
We'll do number one.
They're working with the program. All they have to do is edit it and change the
But do you
font.
want it that size? Do you want it that color? Do you want it that, I mean, do you want the friendly city to be,
We want a font that's
I don't
easy to read.
understand. I don't understand what you want.
I just said, a font that's easy to read.
That's a
No,
font that's easy to
For
read.
which, it's all pretty easy to read.
The
You want
and
to
city.
find
Yeah,
the one
the and
that's
city.
bigger, like
Font.
on number
Whatever,
It's difficult to read,
whatever font
especially,
that is.
yeah, especially in areas of the plan that utilize it in a smaller way. I found like I had to strain to
Yeah.
actually,
It's the same font throughout the whole.
yeah, that's.
And you don't like that font.
And then you can also ask them, why are some of these pages portrait and some of them landscape? Because which way are they going? That part doesn't make any sense at all. Some of these are portraits, some of them are landscape.
We need Michelle here.
So at the same
Yeah.
time, they can, while they're editing that, they can change that font.
Well, let's do this. Let's have Michelle take care of this because I don't want to be responsible for what this looks like. I know.
Yep, I agree.
Okay.
So, and I went through and I had some, we probably all had maybe some edits to do. But I think we need to do that with Michelle.
Yes.
We've been here for a long time already. And, so, maybe what we could do, here's a thought. And I want to make sure this not just going to give more work for Michelle. What if each one of us, if you have concerns about this that you would like to get to Michelle, ASAP, Michelle Kennedy, send those concerns to Michelle, and Michelle can simply forward them on to Michelle Kennedy. Concerns about font size. I have concerns because the word avenue is totally misspelled. And there's a run-on sentence.
And a couple of your names are misspelled.
Yes, Alonzo, your name's misspelled.
Everybody always,
Tammy, there's no
everybody
Q in
always
yours.
misspells my name.
So
It's, unfortunately, she's not here tonight. She really should have been here. And we could have ironed this all out.
Well, we expected her.
Yeah.
And
So let's
I don't
do
know where
this.
she is. I don't know what happened.
Let's do this. Council members, you've got it? Send the email to Michelle Amber saying, here's what I picked up on such and such page, such and such page. Can you change the font here? I'm not wanting to make a lot more work for Michelle, and Michelle can take these, forward them on to Michelle Kennedy. These are the things that need to be addressed.
My opinion is that an email is probably going to generate more work for Michelle, because it's gonna just be a communication, exactly like you said, exactly what font, what such and such. I think this should be resolved by us interacting with her, taking the direction directly from us, not us just, do you want one email? Are we all gonna send a bunch of emails to her?
Michelle, what would you prefer? Would you rather we just reschedule
I
with
think
Michelle
we should
Kennedy?
reschedule with Michelle Kennedy and go directly to the source.
I think we should reschedule with Michelle Kennedy.
Okay. So then the
I
question.
really don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the question is,
Everything's okay.
we're hoping to not have a meeting in August. Are we okay with putting this also on the September work session?
Well, I
As
guess
long
that
as
would
we
be a question for
don't
what's
have
already there.
5 other reports that night.
Well, we'll have to look at that. And then it would be October when we would actually vote on the strategic plan.
Right.
Are you okay with that, Michelle?
I'm okay with it. It just, we budgeted, I guess the budget will just carry forward.
We can
We
always,
budgeted to have this done last fiscal year. So we're drawing this out.
Well, somewhat beyond our control because
Yeah.
we were hoping to have it done. And a month ago, we did ask to wait a month because we wanted to actually get it, look at it, which is a good thing, isn't it?
Yes.
Can we do that?
Yep.
In terms of budgeting? Okay.
We'll
So-
put it on September.
Yep, and Michelle and Kevin and I will really look hard at the September agenda so that we just don't have a long meeting. But in the meantime, you get a whole month off. Okay, so we're gonna move right past B, and now we have C.
Yes, and this is something that came up through the League of Oregon Cities, is the psilocybin legislation, whether or not we want to address it or not. You don't have to. It's a legislation that was passed by a statewide vote to allow psilocybin to be used medicinally for certain mental health issues. And there's an open door, though, if you don't want it here in Cresswell. So there are 4, in the memo, you can either initiate a moratorium, which is a 2-year ban on the manufacture and services provided by, the services that will be provided by someone who is registered with the state. It's not just like marijuana, which I at first was concerned that it might be like that. They have to have certain credentials. So you can initiate a moratorium where no one can manufacture psilocybin or have the services provided within the city. You can put prohibitions into place on the manufacturer and the services provided, or you can regulate the place, time, and manner. So you can determine that psilocybin can be used in Cresswell, but only during, business hours or in a certain location, like such. Or you can just accept the law as it's written and let it be something that people have access to in the community. The reason why I put this on here was because if you want to go down one of these roads, we have to do it very quickly. It has to be on the November ballot. So that means that we have until August 17th, I think, something like that, August, to put if you wanted to do a model ordinance or a ballot measure, we have a very limited time to put that together, and we'd have to get our city attorney involved and get right on it. So I'm sorry to spring it on you like this, but it really needs a discussion as to what you would like to do.
I thought you would be bringing it to us. I know Vanita, their council this month, their work session, they're discussing this as well. And it's good to know that it's not the licensing and exactly like marijuana.
No, it will not be like marijuana. You can't go in and buy it. You have to go in with a provider who will have certain methodologies that they will use, and that's how it will work. At least that's how the law is written.
So here's one of the things that I found interesting, because this is new to me, reading this. But on the proposed ordinances from LOC, on each one of them, on the fourth whereas says that the Oregon Health Authority has not completed the rulemaking process.
Correct.
Yes.
And the city of Creswell is uncertain how the manufacturer, delivery, and administration will operate within the city. So that seemed to be, that jumped out at me. The other thought I had was when it came to the marijuana vote, we referred it essentially to our residents to vote on it, and they decided. If we don't take some action, then this will happen in Creswell, whatever it looks like. If we do take action, it gives from now till November 8th for all of us and our residents to get educated about this and to make a decision for their community, which seems to me like the easiest way to go. But I think for us to do that, we would need to either decide we're going to enact a permanent ban, and then it goes to the voters. I mean, we would decide at the next council meeting that we're going to enact a permanent ban on this. And it's referred to the voters in November. They decide, and if they decide no, then there's a permanent ban in Creswell. Or we decide on a 2-year moratorium, which I wonder what good that does because it sunsets in 2 years.
Right, so in 2 years, you would be able to, the services and the manufacturer would be able to take place.
Right. So, once again, if you decide on a moratorium, on a 2-year moratorium, if it goes to the voters to vote on it, to either ratify what we've decided or overturn it, what about the voters who say, I don't want it here at all? We haven't given them that option in our community. Right? If we decide on a 2-year moratorium, that's also referred to the voters.
Correct.
The voters are going to vote on it, but now we've decided what option they get to vote on. They're voting on a 2-year moratorium.
Yeah, you can either do a 2-year moratorium, you can do the prohibition, or you can regulate time, place, and manner, or you can do nothing. You can do any one of those 4 things by November.
The prohibition could be repealed by another vote?
No.
Any idea?
It's not my understanding. From reading the literature, the prohibition, that's a good question. That's a really good question. The prohibition is in place.
I know that with marijuana, at any time, if people gather enough signatures, they could put it back on the ballot in Creswell. So I would guess it would be the same with this. I mean, again, I don't know how this.
You have to read what it says on the model prohibition ordinance.
The permanent ban.
The permanent ban. Thank you. And I know that there are some communities that are doing a permanent ban that have been talking with the LOC.
Well, I'm going to voice my opinion, and this is very much in line with what we did on marijuana. We decided it was an important enough issue that we would let the voters decide.
But we don't have time for that. If we don't do anything, this becomes state law.
Yes, we will, which means that we would need to pass, and I would be the one, I would vote that we're not voting it on tonight, but I would bring forward that we would vote on a permanent ban at the council meeting in August. Although what we're going to do in August is we're going to we could probably have both of these drafted by our attorney, and then we'll have a discussion at the council meeting, and a councilor can make a recommendation. I recommend this, I recommend this, or you could say, I recommend no action, and then we as a council are going to make that decision. But we would need to have these prepared and in the packet in August.
That's why I gave them to you tonight, so you could look at them early, because the timing is so short.
And we need to give you direction what to have our attorney prepare for us for the August meeting.
Right. Based on what you wanted to do, the city attorney would take the model ordinance and make it into a statement for the ballot statement.
So is one of the options that we take no action, but that we establish place, time, and manner?
That's taking action.
So one option would be that we are simply that we reserve the right to determine place, time, and manner when
Right, and you'd probably want to work with the city attorney to establish place, time, and manner to make sure that it's within the law.
Okay, council, what's your thoughts?
I would be in favor of bringing it, I like the option of permanent ban. I don't like, what really jumps out at me is that they have not completed the rulemaking process for implementing the state's psilocybin regulatory program, and the city is uncertain how the manufacture, delivery, and administration of psilocybin at licensed facilities will operate. That jumped out at me as well. And
I can't see how we can do something until that's in place, but it appears we have to do something.
You have to do it because it has to be done on the November ballot. And they probably won't have those rules and regulations in place until 2023.
Which is when they're supposed to start issuing the license.
So we can do a permanent ban and put it on the ballot still? And the citizens could decide if they want to keep the ban or?
No, what would be on the ballot would be whether or not to have a permanent ban.
Okay.
Because basically the council would be deciding on one of these options and then putting it forward to the November 22nd vote.
Right. You would be deciding which ordinance or ballot measure you want in place, and then you would be forwarding that to the November election.
Okay, other councilors. Kevin, then Misty.
I would still want to know the answer to that question as far as whether that could be repealed through another vote. The only reason...
I can't give you an answer to that question because they haven't set up the rules yet.
Okay, so it's not like any other prohibition or thing that we would do, like when it was the marijuana, we could have done something along the lines of what we're considering here, which is a permanent ban. But I know with that one that was something that could be brought back for a vote either through public or initiative or by council putting it on the ballot. So I guess I'm having a little hard time understanding why we don't know that we could do that with this, but.
Because they haven't made up the rules yet.
Okay. So by putting a prohibition or a full-on ban in place right now and the people vote on it, then it sounds to me like it's distinctly possible that it'll never be able to come back up again. And the ban is the ban and it won't be able to happen again. Okay, and we're doing so without a whole lot of knowledge about it. And this one here, while it has, like we referred to the marijuana thing, this one is different. And the way that I see that it is different is that it's full-on medical treatment. It's not a recreational marijuana thing. The other thing is that there's not going to be the same amount of passion around this kind of treatment as there was around marijuana. People knew what they were voting on when they voted on marijuana because a lot of people had a stake in it and had interest in it. Whereas in this particular thing, I don't think a lot of people are going to have the education or the knowledge to even really know what they're voting on. So I'm just saying, let's tread carefully with this one. If it's a permanent, full-on ban that can't be undone, I'm a little concerned with that.
Yeah, we shouldn't have to make a decision before all the rules are out. It doesn't make sense. I mean, it's what's happening, but we should be able to have all the information before we make a decision on it.
I was gonna say, I am in favor of a 2-year moratorium as opposed to a permanent ban, just because I think that buys us time to be able to educate ourselves. I think it also buys, it provides the opportunity for the citizens of Crestwell to also educate themselves, to kind of think about what it is that they want to do and how, and to be able to see the rules as they would be described by the Oregon Health Authority. I think the other thing that, as I'm thinking about it as well, is that this is something that already went to a vote for the state of Oregon. And so if the state of Oregon voted in favor of it, then I think that we need to hear that too, and I think respond to that as well. And so I think that 2-year moratorium provides us that space where it's not a permanent ban, it's just a pause.
At the end of the 2 years, the question comes up, it's sunsetted, can the city then vote again, pass new rules? If we've decided in the 2 years,
So we miss our window.
with the marijuana situation, we knew that Cottage Grove and Eugene and all kinds of other cities, they were gonna have it. It was gonna be there. And then we could kind of watch what happened in the other cities, because we knew we could bring it back for vote at a later time. So we got that opportunity to watch and see what's going on in other places, and do we like the fact we don't have it in Crestwell, or not? My guess is with this, there's gonna be all kinds of communities around us that are gonna have it, and say, it's okay, we're gonna have it. And we'll still get to be able to watch and see. But if it's a 2-year sunset, and once the sunset goes away, then we have no option of prohibiting it, then we're stuck there too. So, we're kind of like stuck both ways. If the prohibition is permanent, then we're stuck. Except that our community citizens can go elsewhere and get it. And that's what we knew with marijuana. They can go elsewhere and get what they want. If it's a 2-year thing, and then it expires, and we have it, and we can't do anything about it, then we're stuck with something that maybe we really don't want.
It's a shame we can't renew it at the time of the end of the 2 years.
And I don't know that we can't, and I don't know that we can't remove the prohibition.
Based on what I've read, the 2-year moratorium is a 2-year moratorium, and there is no...
When it's over, it's over.
When it's over, it's over.
And based on what you've read, the prohibition is permanent?
I don't know about the prohibition. I don't know. That would be something to ask the city attorney, maybe.
Yeah, that would be. Our community voted overwhelmingly not to have marijuana in Crestwell. It was overwhelming.
And I'd just like to comment on that because the topic keeps coming up. But that was more than just the marijuana. That was a certain group that challenged the vote that the city of Crestwell had already voted on. It was a done deal.
Yeah.
So that was a little more than just marijuana.
Yes.
And I think that, my opinion is that the city of Crestwell's safe bet is the permanent ban. If this, because they have not completed the rulemaking process for implementing this deal, it's, what are we getting ourselves into?
The thing is if it is a permanent ban that ends up being not permanent, you haven't really lost anything I mean, if you go with the permanent ban, because you would have already said we want a permanent ban, and then they would make the rules, and there wouldn't be anything you could do about it. I'm not making any sense, am I?
No, I think, and then we'll let the voters decide if they want a permanent ban or not. If they say no, then I guess if someone wants to set up shop, then I guess that'll happen.
There are cities that are setting up the permanent ban as if it's going to be a permanent ban.
Yeah, and I think we should as well.
Don had a comment in the back.
Well, what I see from this is it's talking about manufacturing and it's talking about services. So basically it would be like a mental health professional that would be prescribing it. And I see the manufacturing, I mean, we have some other type of pharmaceutical manufacturing in town, and that might be an industry that perhaps could be, I mean, that's something to weigh. If you ban that, this is definitely not going to be like recreational marijuana. It's, so, I mean, I understand the idea of seeing it as the recreational, and I totally understand putting it to the voters. I really think this would be more in the lines, and I don't even know that it would be, I think it would be more strict than medicinal marijuana. So if there's a permanent ban that is truly permanent, there might be downsides. You wouldn't be able to have some providers of mental health that may want to locate here, be able, if that's something that they do, locate here. You also might have an industry that could be pretty clean, that could be here. So I'm just pointing out some things to think about. So if they think they're going to have the rules in place by before 2 years, it's just something to consider. But it's definitely not going to be just, oh, anybody can go get it. It's totally different than marijuana.
Except that people will hold up people who grow it. There might be an increase in crime because people may want to get a hold of it and they'll rob the people who are growing it.
I think there's a lot of what ifs, and which I was trying to not even go into. I think the safe bet, like I said, I think the safe bet is just permanent.
I agree.
Because I
Has
think we're going-
anybody, we talked about the chicken plant earlier today. Has anybody ever lived by a mushroom plant? My husband grew up by a mushroom plant in Salem. And apparently it's like nasty gross. Now this thing that the state passed says it can't be outdoor, they can't be grown outdoor. So you're gonna have buildings with nasty fungi in them and
So this is,
You know,
we're not
moldy
looking.
conditions, I don't know.
We're not looking at, can it be used by health professionals to treat disease?
state already said it can.
Okay.
That passed already at the state level.
But
don't
what
know.
we're
They just
looking
don't
at
have
is
the
can
rulemaking
somebody
process.
produce the item here in town?
No, we're looking at use it and distribute it as part of their mental health practice.
Right, so we are looking at,
The whole thing.
yeah, but only for Cresswell.
Okay, so if
I
I can
think the permanent ban.
wrap this up. We need to first of all decide, are we going to put this on our agenda for the next, for the August 8 council meeting? Are we going to put it on the agenda and make a decision on it? That's the first thing we have to decide.
Yes.
I think we
I
have
think
to
we need
for our
to, yeah.
timeline, right?
Absolutely.
I'm just wanting to ask that question to make sure we're,
Yes.
so, yes, we are. Second, what are we going to put on? Are we going to put on a permanent ban? Because we have to give direction to our attorney. Are we going to put on a 2-year moratorium? Because we will decide then about that. Do we want to put them both on? Do we want to simply draft an agenda item that says we're going to make a decision about psilocybin ordinance and ballot measure, and we have these two in there for us to look at? And is there a third option we want in there, or a fourth option?
You're going to have to adopt the ordinance at that meeting.
Right. But we can have both of these presented, because
can
the
have
council's gonna have to
whatever you want.
decide at that
Just
point.
have to adopt the ordinance at that meeting because of the timing.
Because it's an
Which means
ordinance.
that it has to be a unanimous vote.
Ah, okay. Okay, so we have to bear that in mind.
Well, does anybody here now not want to do the prohibiting it?
I don't.
Okay. And so if it's a 2-year moratorium, then after the 2 years, it automatically becomes okay for people to do it here?
As it is now.
Yeah, if we don't do anything, yeah.
I mean, I guess, so a couple of things. I mean, I feel the same way, is that, and I actually won't be at the August meeting, so I wanted to make sure that I'm sharing my thoughts now with you all. Is one of the things that I noticed and we talked about is in the permanent ban, there's that language around, because the state has not decided kind of the regulations around that. That same exact language is in the 2-year moratorium as well.
It's in all of them, yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's in all.
And so I just wanted to point that out as well. But I think for me, again, what sways me to that 2-year moratorium as opposed to the permanent ban is I think that we have to hear the rest of the state of Oregon and how they voted for it. And this gives us time or gives our city time to do that. I do think that we need to get clarity as to what happens at the end of that 2 years, right? Can we then move towards a permanent ban if that's what our...
Sunsets after 2 years is what it says.
I don't think you can move towards a permanent ban.
Okay, so then the question is if we do a permanent ban, is there no going back on that?
I'm wondering whether we need to ask some of these questions directly to our attorney, and maybe ask if they can be present at the meeting to advise us.
Okay.
Because if we have a split vote, then we've effectively done nothing.
That's right.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
So if it's important enough to us that we put it to the voters, then somehow we have to come to a unanimous agreement at that meeting.
I wonder if the language could actually say that at the end of the 2 years, it should be revisited.
It can't.
It cannot be.
No. These are our 4 options, and they're pretty
This is it.
set.
Well, if we're not in consensus right now, bringing one of these forward.
Well, I think we're in consensus that we want to make a decision next month. And it sounds like we want to put both of these in the agenda for packet for next month. But we need as much legal counsel as we can get to answer our questions. So do we want to ask our attorney to be present at that meeting? So that we can ask all the questions we need before we make a decision?
And these will be asked at the council meeting?
Yes,
In August?
With attorney?
in August.
Okay,
August 8th,
I'll be there for that.
and we have to decide. It seems to me like we have enough questions, and we should ask our attorney to be present at that meeting.
And address it first so they don't bill us for the time we go through the just
Well, whatever the
strategic
bill is.
plan.
They're going to bill us.
Whatever the
We're
bill
going
is.
through strategic planning at that meeting? Or are we waiting to
No.
the September work session?
September is the work session.
Okay,
So
good.
this would be the August council meeting. So, are we in consensus? We want to put this on for council meeting?
Yes.
Yes. Do we want to have the attorney present to answer all of our questions?
Yes. I
Yes.
think that would be good.
You can speak to our attorney. Do we want to have the attorney prepare both of these for our review? Misty says no, I think.
I can't say that. I think there's more questions for the attorney.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what I'm thinking, though, is that both are prepared. and then we have the attorney present to answer our questions, then we'll have an idea of how we're leaning based on the answer to that question, but at least we'll have one or the other option for us to go with if we want to do that, so.
If you don't decide on August 8th, you can't decide.
And it has to be unanimous.
It has to be unanimous.
Because it's this is going to be an ordinance.
Yes.
Okay.
So if one does not pass because it's not unanimous, then we vote on the other?
Good, yeah.
Yeah, someone
But it
could
would
make
have to
them
be
And if that, and
unanimous.
if that one's not unanimous,
Then we
done.
have this.
then we're
down.
done. Then we're done.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
just gonna be accepted by law? Is that what is?
Yeah.
Yep.
In other words, if we do nothing, we have done something.
Well.
We've
right.
said we will,
Yeah.
we said we're taking no action on this because we can't agree, because it's an ordinance, and therefore, que sera, sera, whatever will be. Doris Day. Okay, so let's have Ross, or whoever our attorney will be, prepare both to bring to us next month, in 2 weeks, and please have an attorney present, ask the questions, and we will have a good, robust discussion, and we will make a decision. That's what we do, right? We make the best decision we can. You know? That's all we can do. None of us is perfect. We have no crystal ball. And we're trying to decide what we think is best for our community. Okay. Do you want to talk about tablets for city council, Kevin?
I could, and I think that we could probably keep the conversation to about 10 minutes, if you guys are willing. Otherwise,
Okay.
okay. So essentially, there's 3 of us here that were involved in the discussions around when we originally got tablets. And so I wanted to see if we could remind ourselves again what some of the goals were when we decided to go that route. I know that we wanted to make it easier to have the information available, right here. And I thought somehow that we also had a goal of reducing paper for printing packets, but I think you said the other day that wasn't one of our goals, was it?
It's not one of mine.
Not one of yours?
I need paper.
Yeah. And so then I kind of started to think about, okay, well, when we first gave direction for getting the tablets, Jim went out and he did a really good job researching and finding what was affordable for the budget that we thought, was appropriate for doing that. And then we had another need that came after the fact, which was COVID and doing meetings online. So I don't think that when you bought those that you had that in mind, that's what we might be using those for. So we kind of have an additional thing that may or may not ever happen again, but it could, so we have to think about that. For myself, I found that the tablets were small and difficult for me to conduct and do normal stuff on, and that they were underpowered for the meetings, the virtual meetings. That's just, I had a hard time staying online and keeping those going and stuff like that. And so I would resort to using my own Surface Pro here and stuff like that, and then take notes and things like that in a separate place. But I think that it would be good for us to think about whether that's working for us or not, and then to also think about possibly in the framework of what tools that we're using for doing our work as counselors. Do we feel like these are working for us? And I also kind of was thinking about it the other day that some of the answer to that question probably is dependent upon what our expectations are for when it comes to coming to meetings prepared and having stuff ready. And also what our expectations are for how often are we checking our emails. Because I know that technically we're not supposed to be using and connecting our emails to our phones. So if that's the case, then to me, that's a tool that I wish that I would be able to have, because we get enough emails processing through council, especially I think mayor, council president, stuff like that, that I would want to be able to have that as one of the tools. So I guess the conversation is maybe not just are the tablets working or not working, but do we want other tools? So does that, I think that I probably have not framed this as well as I could have, but what are your thoughts, Misty, as far as whether these tools are working for us as counselors? And then let's maybe kind of talk about.
Well, yeah, I would say it's changed for me. In the beginning of getting the tablet, it worked really well. Just because I didn't have the ability at home. You know, I had a laptop that was really slow. It took forever to get, on to get internet. So, and this was just quick. So I can, get my emails. I can look at documentations. So that worked really well. I didn't really use it a lot when it came to Zoom because the screen was small versus a laptop. And that's where my laptop could hold an image. I do like the paperless. That works well for me. But right now I have a tablet, I have a newer computer, so it would be something that I wouldn't necessarily need at this moment, but I still utilize. I don't know if that was helpful, but it's changed for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we can just keep going around and just get have thoughts from everybody, that'd be cool.
I carry 2 phones for work. I have a personal phone, or 2 phones in my life at all times. Personal phone, I have a phone for my clients, are the only ones that have the number, and that goes off at 7 o'clock at night. It gets turned off. I have 2 laptops. I have the city tablet and my business laptop. And it would be nice to access my city email on one of my phones, but I don't want my phones to be part of public record. My photos with my grandkids and pictures and things, I don't want to. And then my work phone has contracts in it with buyers and sellers. And I have extreme liability. I carry $4 million worth of errors and emissions insurance, and so I couldn't access it on my this phone. And if I accessed it on my personal, then that gives all my personal stuff for public record. So I'm happy with what I have now. It's cumbersome, but it's working.
Yeah, considering everything you've talked about, I think keep using that just for the city business is probably a good idea. I don't think it's a good idea to put all the city business on your private computer. I don't think that it should be done that way.
So I'm gonna pick on you a little bit, but not a whole bunch. Yeah, because we're friends, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
okay.
please do, because I don't understand everything.
Okay, so when you are preparing for the meeting, do you just pull it up on the little tablet and then, okay.
I use my phone. I didn't know it was inappropriate to use the phone.
Well, I don't think that it's inappropriate for you to pull the meeting materials on and look at it on your phone, because anybody in the public can do that.
Right.
So,
Okay.
so if you're looking at it in that way, But I imagine that's kind of cumbersome for a lot of, 150-page packet.
Well,
Put it on your phone, it's probably.
That would be great, yeah.
And then at the meeting, I notice most of us have at least a printed copy or the tablets. And I know that you kind of go from your memory of what you've, so, I mean, would it be easier or better for you to have it printed and just be able to pick up a packet every 2
I
weeks?
tend to pick up a packet because I can look at it and I can flip back and forth easier than on the tablet, but I just haven't gotten comfortable with looking at all the information on the tablet.
Okay.
When you said you pick up a packet,
You pick up this packet?
the packet we have is many, many, many pages thick. And
Right.
I haven't seen you come in with this kind of paper packet.
Where do I get that?
Well, you'd have to request for Roberta to print you a packet, and then she would put it in
Okay,
your
that's
box.
why I didn't know what I was supposed to do.
Yeah,
That's
then-
okay, because I actually was hoping that we could talk about that, because I know that would help you, I think, if you.
It would be, I just didn't know why I didn't have a packet.
We used to get packets, they were available for us to come and pick up, and then the laptops kind of replaced that. But I think that if any counselor wanted that, they could request it.
I requested paper packets, because that's what I like, and then they're put in my box every Thursday, usually afternoon, and I pick it up, and I've got the whole weekend to read it and write on my notes.
Okay. Yeah, okay, now that I know the answer.
Now we're done picking on you.
That's all right.
It's okay. Counselor Clark.
Sure. So in terms of, so if I'm at my home, I'll just use my personal laptop because it also, like, I have it set up that it has like the ring light for any meetings, and I've got multiple screens, and I'm able to get into Outlook via the web. So I'm not ever saving anything that's any city business on my personal laptop. I'm just viewing things. I try really hard to have kind of a healthy balance of like how much I'm checking my email on my phone. So I try very hard actually not to check my email on my phone, and that's even my personal email. I try not to do that on my phone. If I'm here in a meeting, this works for what it is that I need to do. If I'm just like viewing things and just taking very brief notes. If I'm serving as like the secretary or the note taker for a committee or whatnot, I find it much more helpful for me to have a larger keyboard and kind of a larger screen in order for me to be able to kind of navigate things. But again, when I've served as a note taker, I save everything to the cloud, and so it's not ever saved, like it's not saved as like a Word document on my computer. It's saved under my Creswell City Council email, or like the Word, the Outlook Word stuff there that way. And then I'll send things out as documents from my storage cloud. I don't need paper packets. In fact, I prefer not to have paper packets, and that's probably just years and years of working in student conduct, as I try and take the least amount of notes possible, because I want to be mindful of what is a matter of public record, what could be subpoenaed, all that sort of stuff. So I try and balance a lot of stuff in my head that way. So that's what I do.
I use it once in a while. If it's a big, huge packet, I'll use it. But I like the printed material. It's just way more convenient for me to, as I'm on the go, throw it in my backpack. I'm afraid if I throw that thing in my backpack, it's not going to last very long. So I don't do that. And picking up the packet here was very inconvenient for me. So, I use that. It works really well. That answer your question?
So do you have yours printed in now?
Yes, I print it myself.
Oh, so you?
Yes, because I can't come down here and they're always closed and I'm.
So that's kind of one of the things, is like printing these out on your own printer or whatever could be pretty expensive. You can blow a lot of toner cartridge in printing them here, printing them at home. I guess it's always an option, though, that if you wanted that you could just ask staff and they would do it for you. Is that right? And
Yeah, we'll be happy to print it for you.
Okay. But if you want to print it yourself.
I just can't come by at 5 o'clock
I
and
think
pick
at
it
the
up.
time, that was hard for me
Yeah.
too, that it was Friday late, and then now I couldn't even be able to pick it up. So that's where electronic was helpful.
Well, staff used to deliver packets to all the counselors.
Planning Commission still does. Maybe Curtis hasn't since Maddie left, but
So,
when I was a planning
I mean, I
commission,
don't-
we always got them delivered.
If there's only 2 counselors that said, I can't get there, I don't know whether that's an option that on Thursday afternoon, a staff member can run over and drop it off on your front porch or whatever, I don't know.
I don't need one.
It sounds.
Electronic's fine.
I want to give you a chance to weigh in and then I'll.
I do, what I like is I do all my email on the tablet. Because I don't want to do any email on my personal, this or my computer. So all my email is on the tablet. I do a lot of composing of council things. I don't do any of that on the tablet because the tablet has no word processing on it. So I can't compose things on it. But in the conversation we had with Ross earlier in the year in training, I said, can I compose things on my personal computer, then send it to my city email, and then I can distribute it or whatever, or print it off. He said, that's fine. But you don't want to do email on your personal stuff, because that can be grabbed. So I've gotten used to the tablet. I use it minimally, but I do check my email probably 3 to 5 times a week, and I can do that. You know, your hands are much bigger than mine, but I can do that on there. So the tablets work fine for me for getting my information, my emails, and then I have Roberta print off a paper copy, so I'm good. So I like the tablet because that's how I do my email. I don't want to do it on a personal device.
So point of clarification, maybe Jim or Michelle, maybe either of you know, but so the idea of using another computer other than a city-provided computer to access email, I thought was only an issue if you were actually connecting and downloading email to the computer as opposed to accessing a cloud web-based service to do the work. So are you saying that we can't, say, use another computer than to access, read, and respond to email in the web-based without that computer being subject to public records?
That's what I understood from our training.
Yeah.
I think cloud computing is what's kind of made this more convoluted, because before cloud computing, you were storing everything on your PC. As Councilor Clark had suggested, and that working in the cloud is something fairly new. Your keyboard and your processor, you basically have a dummy machine who's working on a server on the cloud. With Microsoft 365, we have the cloud drive, which is a cloud storage space that we all have access to and can use. So it does kind of free up the computer, but I think the concern is, will we forget and then, oh, I downloaded it to my hard drive. Now it's physically on my machine, as opposed to, did I put it on the cloud?
And then that makes it open for public records at that point, so, yeah. Okay. Well, my conclusion after all this discussion is it sounds like we have some very wide variety of needs and ways that we use this. And I will say that I noticed that if I'm participating in the meeting, I'm more inclined to just use the computer. But if you are conducting a meeting and facilitating, it's almost always better to have the printed material available to you. So I can understand multiple variety. I don't know that I can even recommend a direction for us based on this. It sounds to me like
what direction are you looking for? To
Well-
discontinue using to them, or?
So I guess in the beginning, I was kind of hoping that maybe there would be some discussion around some possible policy change and maybe a change in how we could do some things. I really would like, if I were continuing in the role, at least as a counselor, to have a second phone that I could access and get my emails on, just for city. Simply for the fact that we get so much come through, and I feel like we need to be, at least during the weekdays, checking email on a daily basis. That's just, we get enough, at least as council president, I'm sure as mayor, that there's probably enough going on in a day that, you know, to have that in my pocket, be able to pull the phone out and so, council, you know, there's something going on here, I need to respond to it. If it's just on a machine that, whatever, I may check it that night, I may not. I may check it in 3 days, in 5 days. I've gone a week before without checking. So, again, that comes back to expectation. What is the expectation of how often we are checking our emails and such? So that's one thing. Second thing, if I were to continue to use a device, I would want something that had a little more real estate and a little bit more power. So that's where I would be coming at it from.
So is there a way we can set up all city emails to where they're on the cloud? And then you have the option of using your personal cell phone or your personal laptop to transact all your emails, knowing that it's going to be stored in the cloud, so it doesn't matter whether I'm using this device or that device.
Yeah, so currently we're using Office 365, which is the cloud version of Outlook. Where it starts to get, again, convoluted is when you start installing the native application on your phone and you start storing your email on your phone. And it may be, and then you get into notifications, which I think are more helpful in the application you're talking about, where you want to get a buzz on your phone that, hey, I got an email, it's important, so you want to open it up.
You probably won't get that with the web-based service. I think you actually have to have it on your phone and receive your emails into your phone to get that kind of ability. So
if you do use your phone, you could go to your browser and log into Outlook through your browser, and then you're just in the cloud. But to do the functions that you would like notifications, it would take a native application. It would actually reside on your phone.
and then that would push the requirement for a second phone essentially, or some kind of a, I know my past, so the phones, and there's management software that allows you to install multiple profiles to a phone so that you can actually separate your personal and your business. And I know that at the city of Eugene, they actually had that option for employees. But I think the question of whether that phone then becomes subject to a public records request where they actually physically have to take that phone from you, then that becomes a problem. So I don't know if there's actually a really good answer or solution to that one or not, except for I would just have to make sure I was more diligent about opening up my computer and checking my email.
Maybe this bears more work by the committee to come up with a recommendation. Because it sounds like every counselor could have their own needs, their own desires, and the city might have to try to figure out how do we accommodate, new counselors coming in. You have the option of a city-issued cell phone or a city-issued laptop, take your pick, to access your email. I don't know that we're gonna solve it tonight.
Definitely, I don't think we are tonight. In fact, the more that I'm hearing back from you guys, the more I realize how complicated the issue is.
It is. I'm not very computer intelligent.
Plus
I
we
thought
haven't-
that if you as long as you logged into the 365, you were on the cloud. And that you could log in wherever to check your email, because you're just logging into the cloud. That's what I thought.
That's true, right,
That's
Jim?
what I
As
was
long as you don't download it to your device.
and what do you mean by download exactly?
Like when Roberta sends you the link to the packet, save it on your device, then you're now using that device for city business. But if you're just on your device looking at the agenda link through your email, you're okay.
Okay.
Like Counselor Clark has done.
Well, except if you're downloading like a meeting agenda packet, that's actually public information. And so if you do save it to your device.
True, there would be no harm in
That's
that
public
example
already.
because it's
Well,
public.
and that was my understanding as well too, or even forwarding the link or forwarding it to Gmail account so that you can print it. That was part of the printing process, and that was okay. I thought that was what even Attorney Ross said that. Yeah.
Did say.
And keep in mind, Jim.
I was just gonna say on that note, the problem is, once you download it on your machine, there could be a scenario where you start to take notes, and as soon as you start taking notes on it, it's now a document that resides on that device. Me personally, I don't check my email on my phone unless I log through the browser and I just check my email for that very reason. I don't want to have to think about it in the moment and realize that I just created a public document on my phone. I think it's just best
You mean
practice.
as long as if you start taking notes when you open it up on that email
Now
that
you
you're looking
created
at?
a document that's subject to public record.
You mentioned committee, as not like I would want another committee for just this, but at the same time, it does sound like it requires maybe a little bit more evaluation and consideration. The other thing that we have to remember is that regardless, in the end, we all need a way to access meetings virtually should we ever need to again. So I guess the idea of a phone or a laptop probably, as long as the solution, allows us to have a way to access those, whether it's our own personal machine or a city machine.
If we had to go back to that, public meetings, can't you log in through your own personal device? Because it's a meeting that you're online for and everything you do is being recorded. So then you're safe that way. Well, it would seem to me that we need to have some kind of a plan, policy decision prior to next January when we have new counselors coming on. So that we start the new year with that. To where we could tackle this again in October at a work session, or we could give it to a committee to work on and give them a timeline of bringing some recommendations back in October. But I think we need to quit for tonight. So do you have a thought on what you'd like to do? Do you want to tackle this all as a council again later in a work session? You want to pass it on to a committee to work on?
We
I
all
would
have
be
different
public.
needs. I don't see us coming to a consensus on.
No, I don't either.
What's best?
What's wrong with everybody just doing their own thing?
Well, the city has to provide something for us to do our own thing on, because I'm not going to do it on this or my personal cell phone.
We do now. If you don't want to use your personal computer, you pick up a tablet.
So the city continues to provide a
everyone
tablet.
with a tablet.
I mean, that's an
It's
easiest,
an individual choice.
and then at some point, the city will have to update the tablets, especially if we need more power.
Yeah, I was just gonna comment on that. The Surface Go tablets, the Surface tablets we're on now. I think the current ones are version 8, and they're much bigger. I think the whole industry's spoken, and they're up to like 13-inch screens now with larger keyboards. The useful life of a computer is about 3 to 5 years. We're on year 3 on these tablets now, so we could be considering the next version for purchase in future budgets. So
We could recommend that it get into the budget for 2023-24.
Right.
Yeah.
That might be a good solution all the way around, is just bigger, beefier devices.
In the next budget cycle.
There was one other thing I was going to mention and ask as far as a staff favor. I don't know if this is a difficult thing or easy thing, but my power on any device is usually gone in about 2 hours. But just like tonight, this work session is hitting about the 4-hour mark here. And so there isn't a really easy way for me to run my power charger over there or whatever. Is there a possibility that we might be able to safely distribute power to this middle area so that we could plug in?
sure, before the meeting, we could set up a power cord and a power strip with some outlets on it.
That would be wonderful.
Yes.
Okay, so do we want to leave it that?
I think that's good
Maybe
enough
that
for
what we're
tonight.
recommending is that Jim and Michelle talk about getting it in the budget for the next year. Okay, so.
Thank you,
Are
everybody,
we-
for indulging me on that discussion.
Oh, thank you for bringing it. Are we in agreement that we are not going to have a work session in August? Do we need to make a decision about December tonight, or can we wait until later to make that decision? We normally don't have a work session in December. So do we need a work session in August? Do we want to not have a work session in December?
I would like to not have one in December.
Okay, so we will have no work session in August or December this year. And our next meeting will be in 2 weeks. All right? We're adjourned. Thank you all.